Hello and welcome to another episode of the Uncommon Energy Podcast. On this week's episode, there is plenty to talk about. The Pokemon Company International just revealed the information for the 2024 season, what you need to do to qualify for the World Championships. They released the dates for a bunch of regional championships and tons more info. We'll give our thoughts on that. In this episode, we'll also be talking about Obsidian Flames, which is coming out in just under 2 weeks. Pre releases were this past weekend. Hopefully, you had some good polls. It seems like everyone on Twitter that I saw pulled the secret rare alternate art Charizard. Like, literally, everyone already has that card before the set even came out. We'll, of course, have Guess That Flavor Text, everyone's favorite segment. And then we'll close out this episode doing our World Championship meta forecast, talking about what we like or what we don't like about each of the top meta decks. We'll give some of our opinions on the tech cards that we feel like people should be including or maybe should be leaving out going into the world's biggest tournament. And then, of course, we'll have our bonus episode over on the Patreon. If you want to check out that extra bonus episode, you can do so by supporting us over on Patreon. The link is in the description, and you can find it at patreon.com/uncommon energy podcast. My name is Chip Ritchie, joined here as always by my friend and co-host Azul GG. What's up, Azul? How we doing, man?
Doing pretty good, Chip. Had a pretty chill week. Just same old content stuff. It felt good. Like I said this last week as well. It feels good to just be able to like be consistently doing that. So yeah, my week was pretty straightforward. Not a whole ton going on, but yeah, just getting ready for I guess Worlds. Yeah, there's a lot coming up, right? We got Worlds coming up. Then Obsidian Flames is out. Comes out literally the week of Worlds, so that'll
Yep.
be around when we get back from Worlds. So yeah, and then we just got all those new information. So a lot of exciting stuff in general happening in the Pokemon space. But what were you up to this week? Did you go to any cups or challenges or pre-releases or?
No, had a pretty chill weekend at home, did some work in the yard. Not too much going on. I've already started playing this game, but I like put like a few hours in it over the last, week since our last podcast, playing the Spider-Man game on PS5. I guess it was like originally on the PS4. I played it back when it first came out in 2018 for just a little bit, but like was really busy at the time for some reason, just like didn't ever get super into it. But I've been playing it now. Super fun game. It reminds me a lot of like the Spider-Man 2 game on PS2 that I had way back in the day when I was a kid. That game is one of my favorite video games from my childhood. So it like reminds me of that, just like the free exploring the city, swinging around as Spider-Man. It's pretty sweet. And the new one is coming out this fall. So I'm hoping I can finish this game, play Spider-Man Miles Morales, and then get them both beaten before the new one comes out. I think it's like October sometime, maybe. I don't actually remember for sure, but hopefully I can just get both of them done before then.
I've actually like taken a my gaming is like taking a back seat. Like I got I remember when we were talking about like getting our PS5s like at the same time basically.
Yeah.
And then I was
You bought a
playing.
PS5, which made me kind of want a
Yeah.
PS5. And so I went and bought a
Yeah.
PS5. And I feel like
Yeah,
I've been playing mine more than you've been playing yours.
yeah, I was playing it a while because I was playing. I beat God of War 1, and I was like pretty thorough. I almost did it like not quite 100%, but I'm pretty close to 100%ing it. I could go back and finish it. And then I started God of War 2, played a decent amount of that, and then I also beat was it Jedi Fallen Order. But then I like just started the new Jedi game, and then I'm probably halfway through God of War 2, but I haven't played on my PS5 in like over a month now. It feels like so. Yeah,
Jeez.
just kind of just the content grind has kind of taken over post NAIC, which is a good thing. And yeah, I've just been playing Hearthstone Battlegrounds in my free time. That's what the one that's been taking my free time. I've gotten like back into to playing. I go like back and forth on that depending on what the
What's your
meta game is
ELO?
and that. I think I'm at 8K. It's the first time I've ever been to 8K. Usually I'm sitting around 7.
I have no
Um,
frame of reference if that's high or low, but I just hear you guys talk about
I
like
think it
what.
starts getting serious around like 10K. Like
Okay.
that's like that's what I think. But I think I've seen people up to like 14K as well. I don't know if that maybe that's like not actually a number people get to. Maybe it's more around 12 is like the peaks. I don't know. Maybe someone who's like follows battlegrounds a little bit more closely can let us know in the comment section down below. What is considered like a good like when I think about like good though, like when I think about like League of Legends, if you're not in Diamond, you're not good at League of Legends. So and that's like just the a couple ranks under Challenger. So
Hmm.
So, yeah, I'm at 8K now. It's the first time I've ever been to 8K, I think. I was close a couple times already. I might try and push for 9K, I don't know. It gets hard. It does get harder and harder. You have to invest more and more time to, like, learning how to actually optimize to play optimally as you climb up the ranks. So, I've pushed through to 8K. I don't know if I wanna try and make the hurdle to push to 9K, though. We'll see.
Are you someone
Um,
who ever cares about going through when you're doing a game and going for, like, the platinum trophy?
what do you mean?
So, like, that's when you get all of the trophies, the little pop-ups that happen when you do, like, little things in the game. Sometimes
Oh,
it's like
like
little Easter
100%ing a
eggs.
game?
Yeah, it's like 100%ing, but it's sometimes doing more than 100%ing. Like,
Oh.
I think it's like the game would say, like, you did all the missions and stuff, but then to get, like, platinum trophies, some of them will be like, "Beat this many enemies doing this move," and it's like this extra little trophy.
Oh, I mean, that's, like, basically well, I guess that's kind of in God of War 2, but that's what you have to do to upgrade your moves, so you have to, like, keep doing moves over and over again, which is a little bit annoying, throwing your axe. You have to, like
But
you have to
sometimes it'll
throw
be
axe
like
attack, like, a million
sometimes it'll
times,
be like a trophy can be, just a
like, ridiculous
little
stuff.
Easter egg type of thing, like, "Pet this animal on this planet," was, like, one of the trophies for Jedi Survivor.
Oh, no, I don't go to my way to do, like, all that kinda stuff. I like 100% in terms of, uh, kinda like beating all the bosses would be, like, that's as far as I'll go as to 100% a game.
Like,
Like, in
even
Jedi
the,
Fallen
like,
Order
optional bosses and stuff.
Yeah, like in Jedi Fallen Order, I wanted to get all of the health orbs and the force orbs, but I hate the chests are so pointless. It's just a new costume. It's so like unrewarding to go to your way to find the
Well,
chests.
wait till you get into Jedi Survivor because
Chests mean something?
well, no, it's like you open up a chest and you got a new beard style for Cal,
Oh,
like
so it's even worse than it was before. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so I didn't even really go too far on my way in Jedi Fallen Order to get stuff, except for to search for like the secrets, and that was about it. But yeah, my 100% of a game is usually just beating all the bosses. That's what I'll look for.
The Azul version of 100%.
All
Well,
right, well, yeah,
let's
let's
hop on into it.
okay.
It is time to chat about the 2024 season information. A huge bombshell drop today. Didn't really see it coming. The meme forever was like late July, right? And it actually happened in late July. We got the season information. For those who don't know, a few years
Let's.
ago, Pokemon like put out that in late July they'd give
Oh
us the
yeah.
season information, and we didn't hear anything until the end of August. I think it was
It was
like
even maybe
July.
September. I don't even
Yeah, it was a
remember.
long time. I remember people
Yeah.
saying, like, waking up in the morning, checking the calendar, it's July 82nd or
Oh,
something
yeah.
like that.
Yeah, it
Still
was
no
pretty funny.
information, but they
What
actually put it out there. Were you a little surprised to see it, Azul?
I was gonna say was when they announced it to be late July, that was that was, like, a reasonable time frame too, right? We're like, "Oh, this is, like, the earliest we would ever get the information that they're gonna give it to us," right? And then
Yeah.
but yeah, I think that's something we could talk about first is, like, this is, like, a pretty reasonable time frame, I feel like, to give us the information going to the next season, right? Like, we have
Yeah,
pretty
I
much
think,
everything. Or
like
is it do you think it's a little bit late? Like, there's no such thing as too early, I guess, but
right.
they wanna build some hype around the information as well, so
I think that as soon as people can start earning championship points, ideally they would know what those points are going towards or
yeah,
like what
that's
their
fair.
goal is, right? So like I think at a minimum right after NAIC, like the Monday after, they could just put out the point threshold, something
Or
like
just take a
that.
break from cups and challenges for a couple weeks after
Or
NAIC
yeah, just
until it
don't let
comes
them
out.
be hosted. That's fair too.
Yeah,
Yeah.
just, like, take 3 weeks off after NAIC, and then after 3 weeks, cups and challenges come back, and then so does the announcement of the points and the structure and the tournament stuff.
But it's like
Because
you
we're
don't
basically
necessarily
3
need to
weeks after,
know.
right?
I think it's good that they release all the stuff, like all the regionals, or like at least the ones that have been announced. Like last year, they added Fresno kind of later, right? So like there's
Yeah.
still a chance that what they have out there is not everything that's going to happen. But I mean, I think it's good that the regionals are announced like kind of in one block. They boom announce a bunch of them. But I don't think like that information has to come at the exact same time that the championship point requirement comes out, and that doesn't have to necessarily come at the same time that the day 2 race information comes out, right? Like I
Yeah.
think at a
Well, I guess
minimum.
theoretically, the
Mhm.
day 2 information should come out when you get the championship points
Yeah,
requirements, right?
sure.
I feel like that should come with
I
that. But
guess
yeah, I
that's
see what
fair.
you're saying. Yeah, if the regional dates don't come out until a little bit later, it wouldn't be terrible. But they seem to be pretty organized this year with this announcement, right? It seems to be pretty organized. And ideally, everything comes out at once as soon as possible as we're getting close towards the end of the season, especially because like the new season starts up 3 weeks after Worlds, right? So you do have to release it a little bit sooner than after Worlds, except for the thing they always release at Worlds is when the next Worlds is gonna be. Did they 1 year at Worlds, did they not announce when
They
next
don't
Worlds
say
is gonna
when it
be?
is, right? They always
Or
just say,
where it is.
yeah, where it
Yeah, but
is.
it's
Yeah.
you can actually, to be honest, this year, Worlds could be in July. No. No, it's gonna be in August again. What was I thinking with July? Wait,
Well, it's
May?
because there's nothing
No,
on
it
the
could be
regional schedule that's in like
June. There's nothing in June on
June.
the regional
Yeah.
schedule. Worlds next year could be in July. No, I was right on that. That was my thought process I had earlier when I was looking at the dates. Worlds could be in July this year. So, we might be a little bit off from our guessing it usually being in August, which, to be honest, depending on where it is, I wouldn't mind that. July is a little bit less hot than August is, depending on where you go in the summer.
They're pretty on par, I feel like. I mean, some places I almost feel like August is cooler, but yeah, I mean, I think it is just unfortunate that this year in Japan, for those who don't know and haven't looked at like the weather forecast yet for Japan, it's not looking good. It's gonna be hot, 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 and also it's supposed to rain. So like
Let's
the
go.
forecast was like 95 degrees Fahrenheit plus rain. So it's gonna be
Jeez.
steamy and
That's like
humid and
tropical.
oh man, yeah, yeah, it's literally gonna feel like a rainforest. Like
Sheesh.
it's gonna
I'm
be
gonna
rough out
be,
there.
dude, in the hotel room, door dashing sushi the whole time, bro. That's where you'll find me.
Azul's not even stepping foot outside.
Dude,
Only
I'm just
going
gonna
to sit
become
down at
a
his table for rounds, and then
that's
between
it.
rounds, he's gonna be in the corner crying to cool himself down.
I'm gonna have one of those little, like, fans that people wear around their neck while they're
Well, have
like,
you ever seen honestly, something you should get, I've seen this before, it's like a fan belt buckle clip that you can clip it on your it's like it's shaped like a phone almost, that you
yeah,
can clip it on your belt buckle and, like, it your shirt covers it when it comes down over your waistband,
when it, like,
and it
blows
can
up into
blow
your shirt.
air up through your shirt. Yeah, you should, like, 1,000% get one of those.
I actually might. That might be necessary, to be honest. So I'm probably gonna be rolling up with a sweat towel, to be honest, at the event. I'm not gonna lie. It's gonna
So if you
be
take a picture with Azul, do not put your arm around him.
Yeah, it's not gonna be my best moment, to be honest, but, hey, it is what it is. Um, where are we at, though?
Yeah,
Yeah, I
so
mean,
we got
it
this
feels like this is the best this is the most timely, well put together announcement about the next season I think we've ever had, right? Like, is that fair to say? Does anything come close to this?
Yeah, well, I mean, I think they do release most of this information at the same like, usually when they make the announcement, it's this like, this is the information we get, but yeah, I think, like, early as far as, like, the timing goes, yeah,
Yeah. Most put
this is pretty good.
together, most information in an announcement at with the most amount of time before the season really gets underway, announcement ever, to be honest. That's
There
what
were
this
some
feels
kind
like.
of interesting things left out, though, which we'll talk about at the end, some things that were not announced that maybe normally would be announced at this time.
Most of it does seem like a indication of a good thing, though, so
Could be, yeah. We'll talk about that in a little bit. But first, let's talk about the point requirements. Kind of one of the first things I think most people probably jump to whenever they see, like, oh, season information comes out. Let's go see what the point requirement is. How many championship points do you need to get to the world championships in 2024? And I guess just real quick for anyone who doesn't know or who's watching this to try to learn about how the structure works. Pretty much there's different level of Pokemon tournaments starting with league challenges, which are local tournaments. League cups is like a little bit bigger of a local tournament. Maybe more people from your area will come play, like, people who live a few hours away. Then there will be regional championships, which will be quite a bit bigger, usually very high numbers. These have cash prizing on the line and pay out a ton of championship points. And then international championships, which there are four of every single year across the world. All these different level of tournaments pay out championship points depending on how you do at them. And then at the end of the year, you can take your total amount of points with some best finish limit stuff thrown in there, what we'll talk about. And you can determine if you have enough points to play at Worlds. And that number this year, as always, is different depending on where you live in the world. Of course, Azul and
the only
I.
one that really matters is, of course, US and Canada,
Oh,
and
snap. You said it,
dude,
not me, bro.
I was actually gonna make a joke on Twitter. How many points did Europeans need for their invite last year? Was it 250?
I think it's 250.
It
Yeah.
wasn't too far off. I was gonna make a joke that this is the first year Europeans have actually had to work for their invite. But
I feel like
it's
there'll be
gonna be
some
pretty.
like high level European players that would probably like agree with that
Yeah.
statement, to be honest.
um, but yeah, it's just all jokes. But it really is like, I mean, yeah, this time US and Canada for Masters 600, 450 for seniors, four. The juniors and seniors actually. I didn't really look at those numbers. They're gonna have to. This is the hardest invite I think ever for juniors and seniors, right? This is
It's
not the
up
hardest
there.
invite in masters ever though for championship point wise. ELO system was way harder. ELO system was bad though, so don't worry about that. It was harder, but it was bad. But the DC year, the first DC year, I think was still hard. It was going to be a harder Worlds invite than this year is. So just to put it in perspective, I guess a little bit overall throughout the years. But this is the hardest we've had since then. I think since the first DC Worlds.
Yeah, I mean, it's so hard to say though because they've dropped the point bar multiple times. Like they did it this past
Yeah,
year.
that's true.
They
But they were
halfway
definitely
through the
gonna
year
do it this
dropped the
past
bar.
year.
They
This
did
past year
mess
was,
up
like,
this past
predictable.
year.
Yeah, this
Yeah.
past year was, like, predictable, I feel like.
But then they also dropped it the first current structure year, like the first year of ICs back in
Modern era.
2017, they dropped the point structure halfway through the year and also like changed how many points you got at tournaments as well. Like went
Yeah.
back and like retroactively added points.
And then they gave us top
Um,
64 cash payout, which they gave us and then took us away the next season. What was the invite though? Was it 500 and they brought it down, or was it, like,
I think it was 550 and they brought it down, or
450?
450. It's been a lot of
It's
numbers.
been a
It's
long
been
time.
400, it's been 500, it's been 550, it's been 4, like it's gone back and forth. It was 350 this year for US and Canada, but the number this year is 600 championship points required. Um and yeah, so there's a lot of kind of discussion about this online. A lot of people I think were a little shocked to see it be so high. I personally think it's like I was kind of expecting it to be 500 personally. I think
Yeah,
that's kind of what
500
most
seemed like
people
what it
were
was gonna be.
expecting. So 600 is high. Um, and I guess maybe a question would be, is that because they want it to be harder to get to Worlds than it has been? What do you think, Azul?
I actually so in the past, now I don't know if this is true or not. A lot of people have said this, is like it feels like they base the amount of points needed to require to get the invite is based on how many people they want at Worlds. But the more I've played throughout the years, I feel like it's just them trying to figure it out, to be honest. Like I don't actually think they're basing the invite system on how many people they want at Worlds. I feel like they're just basing it on, they're trying to set a bar that they think is reasonable that you need to hit to get your Worlds invite. And it does adjust just because they feel like they haven't hit the right mark yet. And we see this year it's going up to that 600 that point mark. There are some other adjustments around the invite structure though that make it a little bit less daunting than I think it actually is.
Yeah.
But I to be honest, like I've said before in the past that I don't think it's that big of a deal that it's not too hard to get your Pokemon TCG Worlds invite. But also with this change, I also don't think this is a bad thing either. That it is 600 points, and I guess on top of that, and I actually uh, it is possible that they lower it at some point throughout the season. I really don't want to see them do that though. I want them to like have gone through a process where they feel like they've picked a good number for what they want and then stick to it through the season. I really don't want
Yeah.
to see them change the points. I want them to have because otherwise it feels like they didn't put the work in to come to the conclusion on what they think is a good number. They're just like put out a number, run it, just run a number, flip a coin, roll a die. I want them to have like put in work to come to a conclusion on what a number they think is good, and then stick to it throughout the season. And then the people who achieve that get their world's invite.
I 1000% agree with that. Like if we look at in the modern era, there has been what, 4 full seasons, right? Stuff got weird with like the COVID
There
one and
really
a
only been
half
four.
season, right? So it was the 2017 season, the 2018 season, the 2019 season, and then the 2023 season. So 4 full seasons. Of those 4 seasons, 2 of them they had to lower the point structure halfway through the year. So they've gotten it wrong. They're bad. They're like their average here is not the best, 50-50 on whether or not they get the number they want. So
Yeah,
and I'm not going to count the 2020/2022 season like for or against them because obviously there's like some kind of funky stuff happening. And maybe you could say the
yeah.
same thing about this season with 2023 since we didn't get locals until like maybe they thought we were
Oh
going to have
yeah.
locals, which is why the points were the way they were. They found out we weren't. They had to adjust, right? There's multiple departments having to work on this thing. So maybe you can't even necessarily hold this one super against them,
I
but
think so. I think that probably is because they said locals were coming back early at the beginning of the year, and then we
yeah.
didn't get them till quarter four, instead of like quarter two. So I think this was just because they just didn't get locals back in time the way they wanted to. So I don't think we really hold this year against them. Them having switching out mid season, it's a little bit harder to hold against them. The past ones a little bit iffy, and the biggest thing is like it. going into the season, people kind of set their expectations for what they're going to do throughout the season based on how likely they think it'll be to get their world's invite.
Yep.
So it really sucks if you're like halfway through the season or over halfway through the season and they're like, "Oh, now you only need 500 points to get your invite." It's like, well, I would have gone to a couple more
Yep.
regionals a little bit earlier in the season. That would have been nice to know. So like, I just want to see them stick to their guns, just own it. 600 points, that's what it's going to be. Don't lower it or don't make it higher probably, but don't lower it and like just write it out. Like hopefully, and that's the thing that's a good indication if they don't change it is that they put in some time and effort into trying to come up with a number that they think makes sense. I'm sure someone over there, uh, you know, ran the math on something to come to this conclusion, and hopefully they stick to it.
A lot of
Um,
people were having I think mostly I saw like negative reactions to this, like of people saying that it was too high. It seemed like the world's invitation was too hard. This was going to be too difficult of a thing to like achieve.
mhm,
And I think you put out a pretty good tweet that like kind of I like, I agree with where you said like if you're already counting how many top 256 you need from regionals to get your invite, you're already mentally defeated. Just focus on improving and the invite will come. And I think it's like a good point because like so many people are just trying to figure out how they can get into worlds with like the bare minimum. How can I get to worlds with the lowest possible finishes? And if you're
yeah.
wanting to be someone who's a world championship competitor, I think you should always be trying to improve your game, always trying to get better. And if those things are happening, you're going to have better than top 256 finishes throughout the
Yeah,
year, right?
for sure. I think like if you're someone who's striving to get your worlds invite, I think at the very least you should make your goal to top eight a regional. I think that's like, as long as you're going to like, 4 or 5 regionals, whatever it might be, plus NAIC, I think that should be your goal is to top eight a regional. If you're also trying to get your worlds invite, you're like, I'm gonna get my invite this year. I think you setting a goal of top 80 on regional, and whether you get there or don't, and still get your invite, whether you do or do not, I don't think that really matters. It's kind of like the journey along the way of just trying to become a better player. But I think that's like a reasonable goal any player can set for themselves, to be honest, even if
Sure.
it's like your first season playing. So, um, yeah,
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 I will
and
say
with that, yeah, yeah, with that tweet, I was just trying to say like, yeah, just already kind of having the mentality of like my my goal throughout the whole season is just to get like 6 top 256s. Just feels like I mean, at that point, like it sounds like you don't even or you don't even plan to like win a round once you get to the world championships, right? And at that point, maybe you should just like not go to those extra regionals to even try and get your invite, and then instead just go to worlds and just kind of hang out as a spectator, and enjoy the experience. Which hopefully, like I said, I've said this in the past, like hopefully worlds becomes more and more of like an event than just like than just a tournament. And I think we are kind of headed in that direction. So hopefully that just kind of continues and makes it more of an experience for maybe it's harder to get your invite, but maybe there's still enough other reasons to show up to the world championships and hang out and have a good time.
another big announcement with this was the fact that I mean, it's kind of an announcement. They haven't like super clearly outlined it. I think everyone's kind of just assuming this is how it's going to work based on what
I
they've
mean,
said
it's
here
pretty
in
much
this post.
confirmed.
It's pretty yeah, it's like it's all but confirmed, right? With them like posting there is no day 2 automatic qualification for worlds. But that's
Yeah,
what it
there might
looks like
still be a
now.
day two, but
Right.
there's no
There
day
will
two
likely
buys.
still be a day 2 of the World Championships, but you will not automatically skip day 1 any longer because the championship points in addition to needing to get to this certain threshold to at least get your world's invite to at least qualify for the world championships. There are also different levels of invite that players may earn with varying levels of travel support provided. So the tier 3 invite is just getting to your CP threshold, your championship point threshold, 600 for US and Canada, 500 for Europe, 350 for Latin America, 300 for Oceania, and then 250 for the Middle East and South Africa. Then there's also a tier 2 invite where a certain ranking of players, it's 17th through to 22nd in the US and Canada, will get their world's invitation plus a travel stipend, which has been outlined to be $1,000. And then the top 16 in US and Canada. And then this is the same numbers as it was this year across the
Yeah.
board top 22 in Europe, 12 in Latin America, top 4 in Oceania, and top 2 in Middle East and South Africa will get their world's invitation, a travel award, which is different than a travel stipend. It's more money. And they will also receive a round 1 bye at the world championships.
We haven't
So
had
no
buys in a
more auto
while.
day 2, but getting to skip round 1 of the event. So this kind of reminds me of the old national championships, right? Where if you had
Yeah.
won a regionals, you could get a 1 or 2 round bye, right?
If you won a regional, you got 2 rounds of buys, and if you won a state championship, you got 1 round bye, and I don't think any of the national winners got buys at Worlds, but I could be incorrect on that. I don't think so. I don't remember though. It's been a
It's before my
while.
time.
But yeah, states and regionals back in the day, you win a regional. Maybe if you got second out regional too. I think if you got second out regional, you got a 1 round bye. If you won the regional, you got a 2 round bye. If you won a state championships, you also got a 1 round bye. So you didn't have to play for the first couple rounds, which was it was a pretty big benefit. And I don't think this is like a huge like this is definitely nowhere near as big of a benefit as the day two bye was. There'll still probably be a day two of Worlds, so it'll probably run like more similar to a regional, right? Like everyone plays in day one. Certain records get to day two, they play out day
Yeah.
two, you get to top eight, so on and so forth. And even though I'm someone who's like played in uh, or I've made the day two at every world since they've had the day two buys. I'm pretty
Like auto
sure.
qualified.
Yeah, I've like auto qualified for day two every time in the modern era. I don't think this is like a bad change. I'm kind of like fine with this change. Like I didn't really care one way or the other. I'm gonna go to a lot of tournaments. I'm gonna play in a lot of tournaments. If there is a potential for a day two buy, I'm gonna play for the potential for the day two buy. If there's not a day two buy, then I'm still gonna play in a lot of tournaments. Like as someone who's like been doing this for a long time, and it seems like most of the people who were day two grinders have kind of the same reaction. It's just like, oh, okay, it doesn't exist anymore. That's fine, right?
Yeah. And I think it's interesting too because the way Worlds exists currently, it almost feels like what I mean, this is also before my time, but from what I understand, it almost feels like a grinder style tournament, right? So
Yeah,
back at Worlds in like the early 2010s, like 2013, that time frame, there was an event called the Grinder at the World Championships where anyone could play even if you didn't have any sort of invitation, and a certain amount of people would make it through day 1 and or get make it through the Grinder and get an invitation to the actual World Championship tournament. And that almost feels like that's what day 1 Worlds has become, right? Because you can't do really well on day 1 and then become the world champion, right? You have to do really well on day 1 to have a chance to become the world champion.
yeah,
So it is unique in the fact that like the world championships currently is different than every other tournament on the circuit, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. But when you look at it, to determine who the world champion is, you basically play a super condensed 7 round league cup with all the best players in the world, which is interesting. I mean, it's like, I think more often than not, obviously, like a top tier, like obviously whoever wins worlds is going to be a great player, right? But when you're looking at a 7 round tournament versus a 2 day event that's 9 rounds plus 5 or 6 rounds of Swiss on day two,
yeah,
I think more often than not, like whoever is the best prepped for that tournament has picked the best deck and has like, um, prepare like is super in the zone with their gameplay, like is making all the right decisions. Whoever it is, it's like that person's going to rise to the top more often through
yeah.
14 to 15 rounds of gameplay than it is 7 rounds of gameplay.
Yeah, so there's gonna be a little bit. You think there'll be a little bit less variance overall for the results. And like I said, it's like one little thing that was like always a little bit weird about the day two invites is like the day two players didn't have to submit their deck list until day two, and of course everyone who was in day one got to change decks if they wanted to. Most people didn't. It was like probably 80% plus did not change decks,
Yeah.
which makes sense. So that was like
Maybe
one thing
even
that was kind
more
of a
than
weird
that,
advantage.
honestly.
Yeah, it might have been to be honest. So that's like a little bit of a weird, was a little bit of a weird thing, definitely for sure when you kind of think about it. But
That actually,
um,
I wonder if we
yeah,
can get that stat this year.
yeah, maybe. But I do think it is. I think it's fine. Like I think the shift up, the shake up is fine. I think going back to everyone playing on the same day is a fine thing as well. Like I'm still like it doesn't. It's for me personally. Like it's just same old, same old. You know, it's like nothing really changes. Like you just kind of got to go through the same process no matter what the format is. So yeah, I'm excited for it, and I'm excited for. Yeah, I guess I am a little bit excited for it to be different. That is it is cool. Just shake it up, have it be a little bit different. I don't think it should just shake it up just for the point of shaking it up. But if they felt like this is a better system than the previous system, then that sounds good to me. And there is still something a little bit of something to play for still for those people who want to go to those extra regionals or extra ICs to get those better finishes with that round one buy if you are in that tier one. The one thing I will say though is like, why can't they just give us top 32 for the tier two? What is this 17 to 22 thing that they gave us? Like, what is this? Like, and even in Europe, they have 23 to
Yeah.
28. Just make it tier
It's
one and for
just
yeah
6
for
additional
Europe and
spots, I guess. I don't know.
yeah for Europe and NA. Just give us tier one 1 to 16 and tier two 17 to 32. It's not hard. It doesn't make any. These are just weird numbers. Just keep it clean. Like it makes no sense. Especially with like US and Canada, we have like I don't know. It's weird. It really feels really weird to compare Europe to US and Canada. We have just so many more. We have more. We don't have that many more play. We have quite a few more players in US and Canada than Europe, but and maybe it's just of all the regions are broken down a lot. But yeah, they should just give us both the same. We should both be 1 to 16, 17 to 32. This 1 to 22, 3 to 28, the 17 to 22. Just it just looks bad. Just for the sake of making it look better, just fix it. Appreciate it.
Yeah, I mean, and especially because like the advantage you're giving is not as big as it was before, right? Like
Yeah,
the reason to not extend it would be because you didn't want to give way more people like a day two invite, right? Like I honestly would have been probably okay if they changed it to the top eight of each region, right? Like the top eight get the round one bye, and then the
yeah.
top 16 get the extra little travel award, something like that. Because I mean, maybe they still want that certain amount of like travel awards to go out,
Yeah.
as opposed to just like the round one. But like, this structure almost makes me wonder like how hard. Like this year, we saw people super hardcore grinding to get day two of all the regions, right? People going to tournaments way outside their rating zone. People flying to South Africa. People flying to Costa Rica. Like going all over trying to get the points they need to lock up that day two invite. Is that extra effort really worth it for one additional round buy? What do you
I don't
think?
so I think there'll be players like me still who I'm still gonna go to a lot of tournaments. So I'm not gonna go to any locals though. So it might be a little bit tougher for me than most people. I'm not going to any locals. I'm still gonna go to a lot of
We'll see
tournaments
this
though.
time next year if Azul truly has 0 championship points from cups and
This will
challenges.
make it easier for me though to potentially end up in one of those top 16 spots because I think there's gonna be a lot less of the people who are grinding for that day two invite who are gonna be going to as many events. Um, because yeah, the incentive's not really there. Is it really worth it just for the travel award and not the day two invite? I don't know, it's tough to kind of tell. I think what we'll probably see is players like me and other players who go to a lot of events, especially ones that also go to a lot of events and also go to locals, will be filling up those top 16 slots because they just like going to a lot of events. And then you'll have the people who like maybe win an IC, top two in IC, maybe do really well at a regional or win a regional, and all of a sudden they're in a position where if they go to a couple extra regionals, they could get one of those top 16 spots. So I think it's going to be like the players who end up doing well throughout the season are probably going to put forth that extra effort towards the end of the season to try and get those last couple points to like get them in top 16 or keep them in top 16. But I don't think we're going to see a ton of players off the rip of the new season already playing for those top 16 slots. I think it'll just be like depending on how players do throughout the season, they'll make the extra effort or not.
And you mentioned people getting top 2 at an IC or getting
Winning a
first place at a
regional.
regional championships. And there's actually something else that I'm a huge fan of that they did, and that is they
I don't
are
think it's
giving
on this
everyone
page.
who
Is it?
wins a regional. I'm trying to find it on the page. Where is
I
it?
don't think it's on that page. I don't think it's on that
I
page.
opened it up on my other window. But basically, they're giving everyone who wins a regional championship or
Hmm.
a European special event, and also everyone who gets top 2 at an
Wait, only
international
European?
championship. Yeah, they did specify European special
Oh,
event.
dude, I've been saying this the whole time. European special events are major tournaments. I'm sorry, but all other special events are not major tournaments. They're enhanced league cups. It's fine. It's fine for them to have the points payouts they have, but call it what it is. So I actually that's cool that they actually specified that because yeah, a 70 person what's it called is not equal to a 500 person, 700 person European special event. So it's cool to see them like recognize that for sure. It definitely means that it feels like that's like a change or an announcement that means they're a little bit more in tune with like kind of the everything that's actually going on than just kind of throwing stuff out there. Are you still struggling to find the
A
I
little
forget where
bit,
it was
but
myself.
I know what to say. But yeah, so everyone who wins a regional championships or a European
I
special event, or everyone who gets first or second place at an international championship gets an automatic invite to day two. Or sorry,
no.
gets an automatic invite to the World Championships,
Yeah.
regardless of how many championship
Yeah,
points they have.
a tier 3
A tier
invite.
three invite,
You just yeah, if
yes.
you and this is what we were talking about literally like a podcast or 2 ago. It's like, if you win a regional, you should probably just get your Worlds invite, right? And then we were even talking about, like we were going a little bit further than that. We were talking about in terms of should you get a day 2 invite, but now day 2 doesn't exist, so maybe I guess at this point we could talk, should they get a tier 2 or tier 1 invite? Maybe. We were even going as far as saying, like, people who top 4 international championships should get a day 2 invite. People who get top 8 should get a day 1 invite. But this is like a step in the right direction. This maybe is enough, we're just kind of throwing out ideas. But yeah, it's cool to see them have this as well. A lot of these changes, I think, in general, are just positives for the game, and I think this is a really good change to see. Yeah, if you win a regional championship, you should probably get your invite from that, and then top 2 of an IC, kind of the same thing, and it's cool to see that added to the ways to qualify for the world championships.
Yep, and of course those points will still count, right? So like if you
Yeah.
win a regional and then you're like, okay, yeah, I'll go for it. You can still, get a tier 1 or tier 2 invite at the end of the year.
Yeah, and
Now
like
one thing,
those points will still count towards, or you can make those
yeah,
points count towards like stipends for and tribes and travel awards for ICs and stuff like that. Which uh you said they announced that, right? I couldn't find that again, but
the stipends, well, yeah, they've
yeah.
announced that the stipends exist, but they haven't really announced much of how they work. So if you click on the international championship page, international championship travel awards, there's a whole section here about the stipends and the travel awards. So, players who finish 5th to 16th in the Pokemon TCG or 5th to 8th in the VGC are eligible to earn a $1,000 travel stipend paid after the event and subject to them attending and completing at least one round of play in the main event. So, this is for international championships. So, for those who
Yeah.
don't know, you can also, in addition to earning prizes at all these tournaments, um, if you rank high enough in a specific quarter of the season between each of the international championships, you can receive a travel award or a travel stipend to the next international championship. So this is another part of the grind that I'll be interested to see how hard people really go for this, right? Because I feel like people were willing to do the internationals grind because if you got if you did it throughout the whole year and you got like 2 or 3 of the travel awards and then locked up a day 2 invite, that's probably overall worth it, right? Because you get the travel award to Worlds, you get 2 travel awards to 2 of those ICs, you probably got stipends to the other ones or at least one of the other ones. So if you are doing all of that, it's probably overall worth it at the end of the year. But without that cherry on top at the end of the line, right? To get that day 2 invite, how hard will people really go for these travel awards? And will we actually see people who are maybe a little less known picking up, stipends and travel awards to some of these internationals and give themselves a shot to, make a deep run, maybe
Yeah, I
a
think we
tournament
will.
they
Like,
wouldn't have gone to otherwise.
yeah, like I said, like I think a lot of this, like, there's gonna be a lot more people trying to go really hard for those top 16 slots. So that's the same thing with these like ICs and stuff. Like people are gonna be playing less aggressively for these travel awards. Um and that'll like leave the opportunity for just like, people who are just having a good quarter. They're gonna be the ones kind of filling those slots, I think, a little bit more than the top 16 or the same 16 players that you kind of saw throughout the year, sometimes having like all the stipends and travel awards. There'll definitely be a little bit more of a shakeup, just kind of based on who does well that quarter, I think, for sure. And like while we're on the topic of international championships, that's one of the things that was not announced. We have no idea of the dates or locations for the international championship. So one of the few things not announced was that. Um, but they
Yeah.
did. We could mention this, I guess. They did update the prize payout and championship points. They added a kicker for top 1,024 for
Yeah.
ICs, and they changed those for regionals and stuff as well.
Yeah, so this one's pretty wild to see. The kicker to get top 1,024 points is 2,046. So if there's 2,046 players at an IC, this is how many points the top 1,024 players can get. So I think a question would be, would they have added this if they don't intend on an international championship this year reaching that number?
I don't think so, right? I think they plan for EUIC and NAIC to potentially have more than 2,000 players, at least NAIC, right? But I would assume EUIC is also in that discussion for why they added this kicker, because the
Yeah.
previous two could not reach that threshold, and they knew that because they were capped at less than that. So if they would add this, I think they're trying to push for those bigger numbers. And this is what I was talking. This is what I've been saying. Like a lot of people rag on TPCI a lot, but you can't just like TPCI can't like literally like blink and then be like, oh my gosh, I can't believe they blinked. This is awful. I can't believe they did that. Like when they do things poorly, I think it's fine to uh, recognize that. But when things are going fine and it's just like not as good as it could go, you don't need to rag on them overly. I think the big thing we saw with that was when NAIC capped this year, it's like people were losing their minds, but it's like they increased the cap from last year by quite a bit, by like 800 players. And then if they increase the cap again next year, like that's we're headed in the right direction. Like, why are we hating on TPCI? There's so many other things to hate on TPCI for. Why, like, this is not one of them. Like, this is like the wrong. And now we see it again that there's probably going to be for NAIC. we're probably gonna have well over 2,000 players or slots available in the Masters TCG with this kicker
Now,
increase.
I mean, I will say with this, like the 1600 kicker was the previous highest kicker that was in place on the website. And it was like 1600 players to get to 512 points, which they've also adjusted that. And this is kind of like an
Yeah,
across the board thing for regionals as well. They've lowered the kicker threshold to get to the championship point payout, which is a good thing overall. But it was 1600 for a long time. But this year was the first year that we broke that number, right?
yeah,
So I would say, like, I don't think it necessarily means that they're planning for it to be that big, but it makes me hope they are.
pretty good
It
indication.
it
I
makes
feel
it
like
makes me at least recognize that they realize that the demand is there, that this number is not out of the realm of possibility this year or next year, right? Like in the next coming seasons, whatever it might be. So
yeah,
hopefully we'll be able to have a 2000 player plus tournament or two this season. That would be really cool. But they did also add top 256 points or top 512 points. Sorry, top 512 points to regionals, which they did not have this year, right? There was the lowest kicker was top 256. So now, if there's over a
yeah.
thousand person at a regionals, which
Which we had a
in
lot of
North
those.
America and the East Coast, I mean, do you think that there's a chance that I mean, there's 12 North American regionals announced. Do you think there's a chance all 12 of them hit over a
I
thousand
think so.
players?
Most of the West Coast ones were close, if not over 1,000. So I
Yeah,
assume all of them will probably be over 1,000. Maybe not some of the north uh
West.
northwest ones. Those ones I feel like are usually the ones that are a little bit more of the struggle. Maybe also, I don't know, LA is like a pretty huge airport, which hint that's one of
I
the ones
think
that was
LA is
announced.
gonna be massive.
Really? I don't know. Maybe.
I think
We'll see.
LA is gonna be massive. That's one
It
I'm
could be,
excited
yeah.
for. We'll
I'm
go
not
through the
excited for
regional
that.
schedule here shortly. Um, but yeah, I think this is overall a cool thing. And one other kicker change, they also changed one of these kickers here for
League
cups. This
Cups.
is like one that would come up pretty frequently, actually. So, for those who don't know, in top eight, the kicker in the tournament software, in order for the tournament to trigger requiring top eight cut at a league cup, was 21 players. But for a long time, the kicker to get top eight championship points was 24 players. So, I know over the course of the last few seasons, like I definitely went to a couple of league cups where we had a top eight cut because we had like 22 or 23 players, but the top 8 players did not get championship points because top
Yeah.
you needed 24 players for there to be top 8 championship points. So it's like a super minor thing that probably only affects like a small percentage of cups, and especially because most cups these days are like way over 21 people anyway. But, it's something that is like a minor thing that I'm glad they adjusted. Also, they got rid of the random 24 points that you would get for top 8 at a cup, and now it's just a flat, clean 25 points. Like, minor
Yeah.
stuff like that as well.
What is
Get
that
rid of these,
32
like,
in
and honestly,
there?
they should get rid of this stuff. Get rid of these 2s and 8s and 6s and stuff like that. Let's have, like, just even numbers across the board. Make it
Yeah,
a little
we were talking about ugly
cleaner.
yeah, and fix those numbers on the tier 2 and tier 1 invites as well, or the tier 2
Yeah,
invites.
yeah, yeah.
Those numbers are just ugly, bro. Just make them good looking numbers. It's not hard, you know. You can do if you can do it over here, you can do it over there. While we're here, though, we should probably talk about those best finish limits, right? Cups and challenges have a finish limit of 6 each, and the way best finish limits work is in the past they've done best finish limits quarterly, but this season it's going to be a total season best finish limit. So best limit of 6 for like league cups. If you win 7 league cups, you're getting 50 championship points theoretically for each league cup you win. But if you win 7 of them, it only counts 6 of them towards your invite, or towards your tier one, your attempt at a tier one invite or whatever it might be. So you'd cap out at, even though you won 7 league cups, you only get 300 points on the season, for
Yeah.
the 6 that you play. And that's actually something that we don't have information on yet either, is how the stipends and travel awards are going to work for ICs. One of the things that's come up in the past is there's been moments where you were able to play in like 8 league cups and challenges per quarter to get points towards a stipend or travel award for international championships. With that, we don't have a clear breakdown on how that's going to work this season as well. So that's like another bit of information that we don't quite have access to. And hopefully, it's not 6 per quarter or something ridiculous like that. And they're a little bit more reasonable to kind of play for. And then also, what is it? Regionals are 6 as well, right?
Yeah, regionals are 6 as well, and there's no cap on international championships. And one other thing I'm actually kind of just noticing that's pretty prominently featured here, and it's listed in a few other places as well that normally isn't listed, like they've existed, but they're not listed normally, like on these pages, is play points.
They usually not have
And
that there?
usually not, and it's because play points you earn for just participating in a tournament, or you can even earn play points for participating in your local league or like pre-releases and stuff like that. And for a long time, you needed some amount of play points to participate at U.S. nationals at the end of the year, or like your
It was
whatever
only, like, for
region's
2 or
national
3 years, but
championship.
yeah.
Huh?
It only happened, like, 2 or 3 years if I remember correctly,
Yeah,
but
yeah. So there was
yeah.
a while
That's
where
like
you needed some play points in order to play in one of the big tournaments at the end of the year. And then they've done away with them for the last few years and done away with them in the sense of like they weren't required for anything, but they
yeah,
did
they
still
still
exist
existed.
and they still like were tracked. Like you can actually see the leaderboard of people who have play points, but the fact that it's kinda listed here, it almost makes me wonder if they wanna do something with these, like, not require them for tournaments, but maybe, like, some sort of player rewards system or something like that. I know that's been a thing in the past where players, like, who had a certain amount of play points at the end of the year would get sent, exclusive promos and stuff like that, right?
Yeah. I'm actually trying to look up now that you mentioned I'm trying to look up who had the most play points last season. Natish had the most play points last season with 100 clean. Yeah, they used to do like a player of the year type thing where they did that for a couple years in a row where the person with the most play points got sent a case of every set released in the next season, which I don't know, I think it's kind of cool. Like it doesn't cost TPCI anything to do that. I'm actually I don't know why they got rid of that to be honest. But yeah, hopefully I mean I say hopefully, but I don't really if they do or don't, I don't know if I really care, but, like, I think it'd be cool for them. Like, they're here to do something with them. Like, if players get
Yeah.
so many play points, give them some cool promos or something, or I don't know, just do something with them. They're here, so we may as well do something with them.
I think we can go ahead and move on and talk about the regional championship dates that were announced. Now, there were not any regionals announced in Oceania, and there was only one regional announced for Latin America.
That
Now,
one we already knew about as well. That
yeah,
one
and I would say don't worry, like there will almost certainly be
yeah.
tournament like I don't want to say anything certainly, right? But like there
I
will
feel a little
be
bit bad for Australia because their stuff always gets announced, like, super, like, close
yeah.
to the dates of it. I feel like Latin America, it kinda sucks for Latin America as well. They usually have a bunch of stuff announced later, but it kinda sucks that it's not announced sooner for them. But Oceania is definitely the one that gets the short end of the stick or whatever,
Yeah.
however that saying goes in these situations always, so kinda feels bad for them that nothing's been announced yet. And if it does get announced, it usually feels like it happens, like, a couple weeks, like, 3 weeks before the events actually take place.
So they've announced 5 European regional championships and also 2 European special events, one in Barcelona, one in the Netherlands, and they've announced 12 US regional championships. So, I mean, one of the first things I noticed is that this is less tournaments than it was last year, in the
Mhm.
US at least. I don't actually know exactly how many regionals and special events there were in Europe, but it was probably like pretty similar numbers. But for a long time, 15 has been the number in the US.
16 to
And it
14, yeah.
Yeah, it does say at the bottom dates, locations, and formats subject to change. More events may be added at a later date. So there's a chance we could see something added, and hopefully, more events is always a good thing, I would say, most of the time. But yeah, well, a few of these we already knew about, but we'll just quickly go through and say the locations. If you want to see the dates and the more specifics, you can, check it out on the Pokemon website. But our regional championships in the US and Canada will be in Pittsburgh, Peoria, Sacramento, and Toronto. We knew about these, and then they announced those at NAIC. And then the new ones announced today were San Antonio, Portland, Charlotte, Knoxville, Vancouver, Orlando, Indianapolis, and then a new one, Los Angeles.
Yeah, I think it's the first time we had Worlds in Anaheim once, but we've never been
Yeah.
to LA, I don't think, which I hate LA, so I'm not looking forward to that one. I'm not driving to it too. It's like driving distance for me. Or it's not too bad of driving. It's like 6 hours, I think. So I'll probably be driving to it, but I'm not excited for that one. But yeah, I mean a couple like I guess like what are the ones that stand out to you that are missing? I think Hartford is the one that stands out to me the most. That felt like it was a staple.
Yeah.
And is
There's
no
no
longer
like
here.
Milwaukee or Madison,
Yeah, that's
right?
true. That's the other one that's missing too, I feel like. We're
No
missing a little bit.
Wisconsin regional.
We're missing a Northeast, regional, no Northeast at all, or yeah, Northeast, no Northeast regional at all, really. Kind of sucks for Northeast. There was always something up there. There was New England regionals in the past. Rhode Island. There was one. It was held in Rhode Island at some point, and
We had
then
Secaucus.
yeah, but nothing anymore. Yeah, we had Secaucus at last season. Then we had, and then Hartford was always one that was happened pretty consistently. And that, of course, if there's any ones released later on, that could be one of them. And then yeah, no Milwaukee or Madison one as well. That one is also kind of missing. Another thing that's missing though is Team Northwest. I think it's bringing note to that. They're no longer running regionals this season, as far as we know. But if we do get back up to 15, someone has to run those. So maybe it is them. Um, and yeah, I mean, they did a really rough job of running regionals last season. So they did. Fresno was fine. I will like I said, like we got to give credit where credit is due. Fresno
Yep.
was ran pretty well, but the rest of them were definitely a struggle. I'm definitely overall not sad to see them go. I think I mean that's kind of the it feels like that was the expected result is that they might not get any events this year. So um yeah, I don't think I saw someone on Twitter saying that that's why we only have 12 regionals. I don't think that's why we have 12 regionals. I'm pretty sure Jimmy Ballard would run all of them if he could. So that would be my guess anyway. So I don't think losing Team Northwest is why we only have 12 instead of 15 regionals this season.
Yeah, so overload events and day 2 events return this year. We did lose Team Northwest in favor of Gallery Games. And Gallery Games did run the Salt Lake City regionals, which was the first regionals back from COVID back in like March of 2022, whenever that was. And that event was overall really good, right? Especially like, with all the COVID restrictions in place, like the table spacing,
Yeah.
the extra like COVID checks and stuff that people had to go through in order to play in the tournaments. Obviously, like all that, we're past those days now at this point with tournaments, but they were able to run that event very well. I think overall it was a pretty smooth one. So, I'm hopeful that they'll do a good job this year as well. I will say
Yeah.
Gallery Games maybe doesn't have the best history with some of the there's been some bad regionals in the past run
Yeah.
by this organizer, but we're looking at what is most recent, and that was Salt Lake City, which was ran very well. So hopefully
Yeah.
they've
It'd be
got a
hard
good
to
good season
out
ahead here.
it'd be, with how many they have, like it'd be hard for them to outdo Team Northwest across the board. So yeah, I think they can definitely handle it. Hopefully it um run some pretty solid events and they and like we saw improvements from like day 2, I feel like and overload throughout the year. And that was like the biggest thing that we didn't really see from Team Northwest until the end of it all, right? Like Fresno was the only one that felt like it ran well. I felt like all the other ones had hiccups and then like little things like deckless submission timing and all that stuff that the players didn't like. There was just like all those little things. And it felt like they had no no want to improve, and that's like the worst thing overall. So hopefully, if
Yeah.
Gallery Games has a rough time getting going, they pick it up throughout the rest of the season and um, are able to remain an organizer going into the following season or whatever. Another thing that's worth making note here, I think, as well for sure, which is I don't know what to really make of it, but none of the tournaments conflict across regions, right? There's
Like
no
tournament dates.
European,
Yeah.
yeah, no tournament dates. There's no European regional or special event being run on the same date as any of the Latin America events or any of the American events, and same thing, vice versa. So that could be a rough estimate to try and figure out when the Latin American events are actually going to take place. To be honest, is like find a weekend where there's no North American or European event, and that's when the ICs will probably be, and that's also probably when the Latin American events will be. So we have all the way down until end of May for North American events, and the first regional is in Pittsburgh. So if anyone wants to do some investigation work and find all of the weekends between Pittsburgh and LA regionals that are open, that are not being taken up by a European special event or regional or the Latin American regional, you can start to piece together when the ICs will be and when probably the rest of the Latin American events will be as well. Do
Yeah.
some
One
sleuthing.
thing that is worth noting, last year LAIC was Thanksgiving weekend, but this year the Poland regionals is Thanksgiving weekend.
Yeah.
So probably not going to be Thanksgiving this year. I don't
I
think
know
they
a
would
lot of people did
overlap a
not.
regionals with an IC.
Yeah, not a lot of people did not like that it was on Thanksgiving week. Well, a lot of Americans didn't. I don't
Yeah,
think anyone
it
else
really
cared.
only matters for
Yeah,
America.
a
Yeah.
lot of Americans were like, but yeah, to be honest, though, we cut. It's like it's the LAIC. It's not NAIC. So like, who cares?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
a lot of a lot of Americans didn't like that, which is like kind of always felt a little self entitled, um, but yeah, we could. It's not going to be for everyone out there who didn't like that. It's not going to be this year. It's not going to be on Thanksgiving.
So with
Um,
this information, we've got 12 North American regionals, we've got 5 European regionals. with a couple special events in there as well. In addition, do you think anyone is going to try to go to all 12 US regionals and all 5 European regionals? Is there anyone out there who's going to go to 17 regionals?
I don't think so. It would have to be someone who's, like, committed full time to playing the game, right? Who's, like, basically does this full time. I don't plan on doing that. I'm one of those people who has the flexibility to be able to do that. I don't plan on doing that. Maybe Tord is just like, "I'm just gonna run the gauntlet this year and go to literally everything," but you just get burnt you'll get burnt out really hard at some point. Like, it's just too much. Like, you
So
it's
much
just, yeah, too much
traveling.
traveling. So, I think we'll see a little bit more back and forth. Europeans coming over here. I wanna go to a European regional this year, or maybe even one of the special events. To be honest, I don't really. It doesn't really matter. It won't be one of the first two probably, but I want to make my way over to Europe for a regional. Maybe Latin
I've
America, depending
always
on when the rest of them get announced. But yeah, I don't think
I've
we're gonna see
always in the
anyone running the
back of my
gauntlet.
head thought it would be sick to do like a I mean, this kind of sounds cool, but I think when you really think about it, it would actually suck so much to do like a year where you just bought some RV or like van or bus and like with a group of friends just went to everything and drove it cross country, did like sightseeing stuff, went all over the place, but went to all of the US regionals.
That'd be pretty dope. If anyone has a whole year off to take, Chip's got a good idea. If you like Pokemon and you
Yeah,
got a
yeah.
year off,
Let me
um,
bring that up to Brooke and see what she says.
or I guess if you
The uncommon
do,
energy mobile going around the
yeah,
country for
depending
the
on what
year.
kind of remote job you have, you might be able to make it work. You never know. Um, I mean, maybe even you could maybe make that work for like a couple months. Figure out like 2 months where there's the most regionals to travel to, and then start driving. You could do that maybe.
Start driving.
Yeah, I don't know about the whole year, but that would be pretty dope to be honest. Um, I could get an RV, stream from the RV, make content from
Yeah.
the RV.
Listen, man. We can put it together. Come on now. We'll slap a Dragon Shield logo on the side of it, they can
But yeah, it's definitely cool to get all this info out this early, right? I mean, once again, Oceania, Latin America, always always taking a little bit longer. Um, always gonna suck for them. But that is like, um, I feel like maybe we get to the point because TPCI doesn't run those events, right? They are TPCI events, but Europe and North American events are really the ones that are be run by or have most influence from TPCI. Like Copag has control of Latin America events pretty much for the most part, and I've only heard
Yeah, I think it's ESL.
neutral or bad things about Copag. Never really that much positive to say. And then
Yeah.
ESL, I mean, yeah, and then ESL runs like most of the Oceania events. Maybe it's time like TPCI steps up a little bit and maybe takes over the regions and just kind of I don't know how that would work or why they're not doing that already and they don't have more control over the tournaments over there, but maybe we see more of that going into next season. Maybe that's something we see more going to next season as long as these events are still like feel it feels like the it feels like, what is the word I'm looking for? Like, compared to Europe and North America and how everything runs, it feels I mean, worse, but there's a better word that I'm looking for here. I can't come up with it, but
Comparable or
on yeah, it just feels bad. It feels almost like it's like a blemish on their record or like what is the correct phrase? Not a blemish, but
bro,
like
I got nothing for you.
there's a phrase for this. It's like, I don't know, it looks bad on TPCI for these 2 regions to be handled that much more poorly than the rest of their regions, but there's
Sure.
a good word to use in this kind of situation, but I don't know what it is.
Drop a comment down below. Help
Yeah,
Azul find
what is
his
the
word.
word?
We're literally gonna be in the middle of guess that flavor text. And he's gonna be like, "Oh, it was not the Pokemon he's trying to guess. It's gonna be the word."
Yeah.
And then before we get into our next segment, one thing we did want to just mention real quick: there was a couple things that did not come with this announcement that normally do, and that is the internationals locations, which you mentioned, but also no prize pool announcement, which is particularly interesting, right? So they've got information on the internationals and regional championship pages about like the championship point payouts,
Yep.
but nothing about the prizes, like the actual cash prizes that you can earn at these tournaments. And they all have a note down at the bottom saying, please check back later for information about the international championship prize pool. So, I mean, I feel like if it was going to be the same as it has been, it would have just been copy pasted over. They would have
Yeah.
announced it, right? So, is that a decent indicator that something is changing here? The fact that they did not announce anything with that yet?
I mean, maybe one thing funny about it is that they did copy paste the international one over to the regional page. On the regional page, it says international championships prize payout.
Yeah, yeah.
So I don't know. Maybe just the person who usually writes on the site is like on strike or just didn't show up to work, and that's why they just don't have the and they they were supposed to put the new numbers in and just didn't. So I don't know. But yeah, I think it does seem like a good thing in terms of it seems like prize payouts are probably. I don't think they would ever go lower, so I would say this is a good indication that prize payouts are going to increase for regionals and international championships. Not for sure. We don't know for sure, but the fact that they didn't just announce it if it was the same, and the fact that they would never make it go lower, I don't think that would be ridiculous if they made it lower. I think they are going to increase them going into the new season. That'd be my
And
guess.
maybe it also could just be like the top end doesn't change. Like it's still 5K for first at regionals,
Yeah,
10K for first at internationals, but they just pay out more spots. That is also something they could do, like pay out the top 64
we used
at
to have, yeah,
regionals, pay out the top 128 at internationals, something like that. So I'll be interested to see if which route they go with it. Which would you prefer? Would you prefer something more top heavy or would you
more top
prefer a
heavy.
deeper payout?
More top, but I mean both ideally, but I think more top heavy for sure.
Yeah, I think
Like,
I would
yeah,
agree.
if you just doubled everything top 32 and up, I think that would be like that. If I had to like pick a number, like just double everything top 32 and up in ICs and regionals, just double it.
Yeah.
Or I guess top 64 at ICs, right? They pay out to top 64 at ICs, but yeah, I don't think like paying down to top 2028 at ICs or top 64 at regionals. Like I don't know, just like I'd rather like
Maybe with the size regionals are, right? Like, I mean, I think
yeah, I
64
mean
probably should be, but
both ideally would happen, right? Pay down to top 64 and then double it up or something. It should be 10K for first at regionals. I don't know, something like that.
double it and give it to the next person. All right, we'll move
Double it and give it to the
on.
next tournament.
The next tournament, yeah. Do you want your
Worlds, you're
5K
just
for winning this tournament, or do you want to double it and give it to the
to
next
the
person?
next tournament.
All
Oh,
right, well,
that's
let's move
funny.
on. There's a new set coming out. Pre-releases were this weekend. Obsidian Flames on the horizon. Azul, what do you think about this set, man? What's going on here?
I think we should double the set and give it to the next set because there's not that much good in this set. So yeah, it's looking pretty bad. I mean, my standout cards, the cards that I mean, the Charizard I think is like the card in the set by far, but it's not a card. It's not like a Guardy EX type of card. It's a Charizard EX type of card, which is what it is, and it's pretty good. You want to go ahead and read it, Chip? Let them know what it does.
Yeah, so it's a stage 2. It is a dark type. It is a Terra Pokemon, and
Terra for terrible.
it has the Infernal Control ability. When you play this card from your hand to evolve a Pokemon during your turn, you may search your deck for up to 3 basic fire energy cards and attach them to your Pokemon in any way that you like. And then it has the Burning Darkness attack for 2 fire. It deals 180 damage. And then this attack does 30 damage for each prize card your opponent has taken. 30 more damage. So, I mean, good energy acceleration, energy efficient attack. It's a dark type. It hits Mew VMAX and Gardevoir EX for
330
weakness.
HP.
It's a big boy, you know. There's a lot going for this card. It
Yeah.
is a stage 2. I think this
You get a
card
lot of
would
value
probably
from it.
be really good at some point, but it might just not be right now.
Yeah, you get so much value from, like, once you get it out like, that's the thing is, like, once you get Guardy EX out, you can load up an attacker with Guardy X's ability. Once you get Charizard EX out, you can load up an attacker with Charizard ability, whether that be itself or some other fire Pokemon that you're playing
Yeah.
in there, because it is Dark type itself, but it accelerates fire energy. So, yeah, definitely the best no, actually, it's not true. The best card in the set is actually Cleffa. Charizard is the second best card in the set probably, but the most likely to have an archetype created around it. I don't think we're creating a Cleffa archetype with the Cleffa release. We are creating a Charizard EX archetype. So, Cleffa is the best card in the set. Charizard is the best archetype coming out of the set, but it doesn't seem like it's gonna be like the new, which is not a bad thing, to be honest. It doesn't seem like it's gonna be the new BDIF, and it seems like it might be a solid tier 2, tier 3 deck. But I think the problem with this set is besides maybe Pidgeot EX being slotted into some decks, like, that's it. That's, like, all the set has to offer, it feels like.
Yeah, at least right now. Like, and there's
Yeah,
nothing to
we're
say that
rotations
something
away.
in the future doesn't come up. There's a couple cards I think are cool. Like, I'm kind of a fan of the Toad Scroll EX. I mean, how do you spell this? Toad. There we go. Toad Scroll EX. 270 HP on a stage one. It's got the Colony Rush attack for a grass. It does 80 damage plus 40 more damage for each of your benched Pokemon with a grass energy attached. So you can ramp that up there with a few different things in the format we've talked about. We talked about this last week a little bit. The Cherim. We talked about the Fortress EX, both as
Terms
being
time.
options to do it. And it's got a solid ability as well. Protective Charm, prevent all effects of attacks from your opponent's Pokemon done to all of your Pokemon that have energy attached. So yeah, I mean, there's definitely like a decent bit going for this card. It's got a decent amount of HP, energy efficient. Um, but I mean, I just don't know like how good it would be right now, obviously.
Yeah, I feel like it's yeah. I mean, the ability is good. Like we've seen Espeon VMAX be utilized to shut down effects of attacks, right?
Yeah.
To some pretty decent effect throughout its time in the format. Um, I do think this set is like because Cherim's going to rotate when rotation happens, whenever that might be. Hopefully, we're still following Japan as far as that goes, and we get rotation sometimes next year. And we haven't heard any announcements yet about rotation, so I feel like that's probably going to be what we're looking at here. Because I feel like we usually get the rotation announcement pretty reasonably. Like I feel like we'd have that by now usually.
Yeah,
Um,
maybe they'll talk about it at Worlds this year. I don't know.
that'd be cool. And I think I was like, yeah, I think he's talking about worlds. We got to be getting Paradox Pokemon for the new mechanic, right? That's going to be what's going to be announced, right? We
Yeah,
already have some
probably. I mean,
Paradox
that's like
Pokemon, but it's got to
what
be
the
like,
next set is supposed to be based on, I think,
yeah,
right?
it's like Paradox something,
Yeah.
something or other. Yeah, Toad Scroll. I think this is like this set is going to be Cherim's time to shine, whether it be Afterworlds or it'll be Afterworlds, whether it be with this set or maybe a set later, because we have the Toad Scroll, which I think combos really well with the Cherim. Could be a cool tech card in decks in general to shut off the ability or the effects of attacks. But there's also the Vespa Queen EX coming out, and this card is just sick. The card is super sick. The attack is just really really cool. Chip, let them know what the Vespa Queen does.
Yeah, it's got really one attack. It does have a
Yeah,
first attack, but the main
gonna talk
attack
about
for
that attack.
3 grass, it has Phantom Queen, 200 damage, and then put 3 damage counters on each of your opponent's benched Pokemon that has any damage counters on it.
I'm pretty excited for this card. It is a Terra Pokemon as well. Because once again, you can load this thing up. You can load up some combis with Cherim and then evolve them to the Vespa Queen. 200 damage. You will have to get some kind of extra damage. Like Halucha or Alakazam's gonna have to make its way into this deck, or is there like a grass Pokemon that spreads? That might exist.
Yeah, I don't know.
Um,
I'm having a hard time understanding why you think this card is good at all, to be
you
honest,
just put
but
a lot of damage in play. It's like it's spread its back, bro. We're here. I don't know. It's like the best
is
spread card we've
3
seen in a
grass
while.
energy
I'm
like
honestly just the most excited for to use Cherim. Like that just sounds really cool. Like that's what I'm most excited for.
oh my goodness.
Cherim's gonna have its moment. Toad Scroll, Vespa Queen. You probably bop Lost Box if you have some way to like spread the damage. There's got to be some grass Pokemon that spreads for as an attack. It's out there.
Well, you said Cleffa's the best card, but I think in
Clef is the
reality,
best
the best
card.
card is this Pidgeot. And maybe I think when this set rotates out, whenever they rotate the G block out of standard in like 5 years or whatever it'll be, 3 years, we'll
It'll
have to
go
come
down as one
back
of the
and look at
greatest.
which card had more competitive success. Is it your Cleffa or is it Pidgeot EX? I got a feeling it's going to be this Pidgeot.
Well, I
It
think
might not be
Cleffa.
amazing immediately, but we talked about the Charizard. I feel like this is probably a card that works decently with Charizard. I even saw Mahone posted a list this week that had Arceus V Star and Pidgeot in a Charizard deck. Was just going hard, finding every single card he wanted, every single turn. Seems kind of sick. But yeah, it's got this quick search ability. Once during your turn, you may search your deck for a card and put it into your hand, then shuffle your deck. You, of course, cannot use more than one quick search ability each turn. I think the place that this is probably going to work the best immediately is in Chien Pao Baxcalibur. And I actually think like this is a card that has the potential to just make Chien Pao Baxcalibur like an actual real top tier contender. It's already like a pretty good deck, but I feel
Yeah.
like this could put it over the edge and make it a tier 1 deck, to be honest.
Yeah, maybe that's where I think it slots in best initially as well. But it might be a
I
while
wasn't
till
like
we see it.
super crazy on this card when it first came out. I was trying to be like more subjective and be like,
Yeah,
yeah, I don't know, like it. But the more I've thought about it, like I just think this card is going to be so good with Baxcalibur, and I feel like anytime like we're moving to a stage 2 format in the future, like after a rotation or two, like this is just going to be a card that is in a lot of
it'll
decks.
be a
I think in the
card for sure.
future. Yeah.
Yeah, I can see it. Yeah, I think moving forward, like, definitely. But we're so like, dude, I just can't wait for Battle VIP Pass to rotate. I think that'll be so. It's just such a terrible card. I hate it so much. It's so broken. It's so good, but it's so bad because it like really amplifies the um aggressive good turn one kind
Yeah.
of thing, that kind of feels like it happening in the game a little bit. Like it's just once we give it a battle VIP pass,
I
honestly might be like next rotation might be it. We might not have to wait two rotations because Lost Box will still be around. It'll still be probably pretty good, or Lost Zone something will be. But the just battle VIP pass leaving the format, I think will be so healthy for the game. I'm excited for it.
Hopefully that won't be too far away. We'll see though. Maybe they'll give us the January rotation again and keep us in line with Japan. But those are
Yeah,
kind of the main cards we're excited for from Obsidian Flames. It does
and
overall
Cleffa.
feel kind of just like a meh set, which is a bit of a bummer, but we got better things to look forward to. 151 coming out and hopefully a good winter set as well in November. But with all that
How do
being
they
said,
actually like speaking of that real fast? When they do an initial release of a mechanic, how powerful are they usually? I'm trying to think of like past sets.
Buzzwole GX, Rapid Strike Urshifu VMAX,
They're looking pretty good. What about the tag teams? Did we get Pikachu in
Pikachu
it?
and
But Pikachu
Zekrom.
wasn't good initially. What
It
what what
was
was
pretty good
good?
initially
No
still.
one played it though. We were missing Coco, right? Coco was like the missing piece
Yeah, yeah. Well,
or something
it
like
was
that.
better in expanded initially. People thought it was broken and expanded, then it flopped that first expanded tournament, but then it did
Yeah.
really good the next expanded tournament. So but
Yeah,
that was when
yeah.
expanded was still more of like a format that was played a lot.
Yeah, yeah, that's true, that's true. So
That was
usually it
kind of
is like a
the
pretty
end of
good.
the expanded being like a fun format was around then, to be
Yeah.
honest.
It was good for a little while, but it had its run for sure. Um,
Okay.
yeah.
With that being said, we're going a little long here on the episode, so let's get it trekking through here. But take a moment as well, of course, to give a big thanks to our sponsor, Dragon Shield, for supporting us here on the Uncommon Energy podcast. Of course, Dragon Shield makes some of the best card gaming and tabletop gaming products and accessories on the market, including sleeves, binders, deck boxes, and so much more.
Yeah, yeah. Big shout out to them. I've actually picked out my sleeves to bring to Worlds. I was looking at my Dragon Shields on my shelf the other day, and I was like, all right, what are we gonna go with? And I decided to run it up again with the Blood Red. So I'm bringing the Blood Reds to
That's been your go
World.
to for like 3 months, I feel like.
Well, I've always had them as an option. But yeah, I locked them in the other day. I like actually like I always like forget stuff. I always like trying to get stuff as like packed as I can ahead of time. So like I always leave my case of cards in my suitcase and stuff like that. And then I was like going through my shelf the other day and I was like, these things I'm bringing with me to Worlds, I'm just gonna put them in my suitcase right now so I don't forget them and just like get a little bit further ahead of the packing process. So I've locked those in. Um, and yeah, big shout out to Dragon Shield as always, for sponsoring the podcast. You can find them pretty much everywhere, but also at dragonshield.com/webshop/US or EU, depending on where you're from. And now here comes Guess That Flavor Text. It's my turn to guess a card that Chip is going to pick for me. If you don't know how Guess That Flavor Text works, one of us will read a flavor text on a card. And the other person has to try and guess which Pokemon that card belongs to. If you get it right without using any lifelines, you get 4 points. For each lifeline you use, what set the card is from, what stage the card is, or read an attack name, the points get reduced by 1. Chip, I'm ready. Hit me with the flavor text.
It immediately headbutts anyone that makes eye contact with it. Its skull is massively thick.
Massively thick. This sounds like Craniodos. Wait, is it called Craniodos? Well, yeah, because there's Craniodos into I don't remember the stage 2. Rhyperior? No. It's Rampardos.
Yeah, there you
Rampardos.
go.
Yeah, well, I'll do the stage. What stage is the card? Let me not get too far ahead of myself.
It
Field
is a
Craniodos.
basic.
Okay, well, it's not Craniodos because wait, how do fossil Pokemon work? Is Craniodos a basic or is Craniodos a stage 1? Well, the fossil is the
Craniad.
oh no,
Which
they're like a revived Pokemon or something, right? Like they're not even like a stage, right? Isn't that what it says? Like like
fossils for a
restored,
long time were restored
restored.
Pokemon.
Yeah.
But now when fossils are printed, they are stage ones and they evolve from the like unidentified fossil item card.
Okay, but you said it was a basic, right?
It is a basic.
So it's not Cranidos. What is read me the flavor text one more time.
Sure. It immediately headbutts anyone that makes eye contact with it. Its skull is massively thick.
Massively. I mean, that sounds like Cranidos, but Cranidos isn't a basic as far as I know. And what a Rhyhorn? But no, Rhyhorn has the horn, so it's not really using its skull. All right, what set is the card from? I need a little bit more here.
It is from Black and White Next Destinies.
Are Cranidos and Black and White next Destinies? Now I'm like kind of stuck on this. I'm still stuck on. No, there's no. It's not Cranidos. I don't even know if there was fossil Pokemon back then in Black and White. I don't even remember.
There's been fossil Pokemon since base set.
It's a
No, sorry.
basic Black
There's
and
been
White
fossil
next
Pokemon since
Destinies.
fossil.
Next Destinies was with Mewtwo EX, right? That's when Mewtwo EX
That's
came.
Azul knows a set. Let's
Well, I
go.
think we've done this. We've done this before on the podcast where I was like, "That's the one with Mewtwo, right?" And you're like, "Yeah, it is." All right, one more time, Chip. Hit it with me one more time. Come
Oh
on.
my gosh. The three-peat, the three read. It immediately headbutts anyone that makes eye contact with it. Its skull is massively thick.
Massively. All right, give me an attack name on this Pokemon. I need a little bit more here.
Shed skin.
Shed skin.
Shed skin.
Well, snakes shed skin, but I don't think there's a snake with a skull that is headbutting anything. This one is tough to be honest. I don't actually know what this is. Is it Cranidos? No, hang on. It's not my guess. It's not my guess. Just thinking out loud. I have no clue. I have no clue to be Cranidos.
Going with the Craniodos, and
There's no way it's
Craniodos
Cranidos.
is incorrect.
Yeah, I knew. What is this?
It is. I'm actually not 100% sure if we have had a card with this Pokemon on it before on Guess That Flavor Text. We maybe have, but it is Scraggy.
Oh my gosh.
Little old Scraggy. Look at him.
Aggy pants, scraggy. That's his
There's
skin
one.
though, right? Oh, that makes sense.
The
Why is
pants.
his
Yeah,
Yeah, I
that's the
would have never
skin,
got
bro.
this.
He's shedding the skin. And in the video game, I believe it has the ability shed skin as well. So anyone out there playing along at home maybe got this one with the shed skin hint.
Scraggy out here mid skin shed. With a massive head. Yeah, what
Yeah,
is the
massively thick
this is
skull.
this Pokemon just feels like the leftovers of a bunch of ideas. Like somehow like has a massively thick skull, is like part snake, like yeah, it's just like a leftover of a bunch of Pokemon ideas for sure.
On
Kind of
the
looks like a
webs
human. Like
Yeah. On the website we use PKMN cards to like view cards and stuff like that. People can make accounts and comment on their cards. And there's one comment on Scraggy here, and it just says 11 years ago, bro fist. Look at this guy.
yeah, I guess. So if he makes eye contact with you, he's just gonna headbutt you.
He's just gonna
Good to
headbutt
know.
you. He's coming at you.
Don't look at Scraggy. Let's heard it here first. You run to
I
a wild
actually looked
Scraggy.
at what the cards. Oh, what card was it? People have gone and like commented on cards and stuff on PKMN cards. It wasn't this one. Like
Oh,
that have
wait,
been on
once
Guess
we've
That
done
Flavor
the
Text
oh,
before.
really?
Yeah, yeah. I like went back and looked at one like a couple days after the episode, and people had like commented on it. It's pretty funny. No, I don't see one here. All right. Well, we can move on to the World Championships. So Worlds is coming up in just a couple weeks. What we're going to do this week is talk about each of the top 10 or so decks, give kind of our opinions on them, what we think about each of them, some of the tech cards we think could be good, whether or not we think a deck could be a good play. And then next week, we're going to do a tier list and kind of rank every deck, do our Worlds tier list, and think about where we want everything to be and how uh like some of our predictions as well, like the stuff of like what region we think is going to win, what deck we think is going to win, all those type of things, how many Miraidon are going to be in top 8 or whatever it is. So yeah, Azul, you ready to hop in and talk about some of these decks? I guess before we do that, do you have any kind of just like overall thoughts on the health of the current meta game? What do you think? Is this a good meta right now?
It's kind of whatever, to be honest. I just like the decks. Overall, like all the decks, like I said, Battle VIP Pass feels like the worst offender with this as well. It's just like it's not gonna feel that enjoyable to Pokemon doesn't feel like truly unenjoyable, but a lot of the decks feel like they're all tempo based. Like everything is just kind of based off tempo, and there's like besides Gardevoir, like there's no real build up to late game. And maybe that's one of the appeals of Lost Zone Giratina actually, and that's why it's been so popular. Because there is like a little bit more of playing towards a kind of a late game where you disrupt your opponent and try and make a comeback through the Giratina, how powerful the Giratina can be in the late game.
So what we're going to use for this is we're going to be using Trainer Hill's meta analysis tool, and we're going to look at each of the top decks for every tournament. The date range we're using is standard format tournaments with minimum of 30 players on the Play Limitless platform, ranging from the day after NAIC to now. So how the meta has kind of evolved after NAIC. Obviously, the online metagame is not a perfect representation of what we would expect to see at the World Championships, but it does kind of give us a ballpark of what the general Pokemon player base is kind of thinking about.
How
So
people are feeling.
we're gonna look. You want to do like the past 7 days side, or you want to do the overall side? What do you think?
Maybe past 7 days. I think that'd be the best place to start
And as you
or to
mentioned it,
tackle.
Lost Zone Giratina up at the top. So this deck went from something that was basically not at all talked about pre NAIC. It was played a little bit at NAIC, didn't see the most success. Henry Brand has been posting his Lost Tina propaganda, and Kyle Sablehouse made a decent run at NAIC with the deck, but now it's sitting as one of the top decks in the meta. I've seen tons of posts of people topping their league cups with it, winning some league cups. It's done really well in online events as well. And it is the last 7 days is a 12.7% meta share, the number one deck online. Why you kind of, I guess, touched on why you feel like people were drawn to this deck, but you've also been a pretty staunch hater of this deck. Like you've been pretty outward about your
Critic.
disdain for this archetype. Do you still kind of feel the same way, Azul, in the current meta?
I'm still not every time I go back to it, like, obviously, like, I can be wrong on things, right? And with how popular and successful it's been, in, locals, online tournaments, I was like, "Well, I gotta go back and try it," right? Like, maybe I am wrong, right? And it's fine to be wrong, and I'd be fine if I was wrong, but I go back and play the deck, and it's just like, dude, it just feels as awful to play as it did the last time I played it, and,
Yeah.
I guess, like, the one thing I'll talk to is I think I like the no cross switcher builds. I know that's what Henry Brand has been pushing in his propaganda has been the cross switcher build, but I definitely think I like the no cross switcher build. It's just a little bit more feels a little bit more consistent about getting through your deck. You're not relying on hitting two cross switchers to be able to get like another switch card going. Instead, you just replace the cross switchers for like more switch cards and like nest balls and stuff like that. So that's my one take on the deck. But besides that, I'm still not a big fan of it. But it does keep doing well. So yeah, maybe I'm wrong, but if I can beat it, if I feel like I beat it with every other deck that I'm playing with, then I hope a lot of people show up to Worlds with it. That's
Yeah.
my opinion.
And I mean, we'll talk more about what our actual like meta share predictions are next weekend
Yeah,
or next week on the podcast. But I mean, this deck has also like in addition to these online events, there's a whole nother factor to Worlds, right? All the Asian players, players from Korea and Japan and everywhere else in Asia that we like, probably don't participate in these events as much. There's obviously some Japanese players that play in these tournaments, but um,
they like Lost Tina in like
Lost Tina has
Japan
been extremely popular in Japan specifically for, a long time.
for a
So
while. Yeah.
I would expect it to have a decent Worlds meta share. I'm also just like not super crazy on the deck, to be honest. Like I've played it a little bit as well, and I've watched some streams the last couple weeks, and I remember watching it was James Cox was streaming, and he played against a Lost Tina. He was playing Arceus Giratina, I think, at the time, and he like Iona. He was in like a terrible position at the beginning of the game, and then he Ionoed the guy and to like four cards or something like that. And the guy just dead drew the rest of the game, and and James even said like you whiff every single time here, like he like as someone who has played the deck a bunch, he just kind of knows like you get Iona to four in the mid game based on the way he played it and like what he had in the discard pile in the lost zone. It's like there's just no good hits really, like a very low odds get out of this Iono. So I mean, if Arceus decks continue to rise in popularity, which is kind of the biggest player of Iono right now, it feels like it could be tough for Lost Tina.
Yeah, not looking great for Lost Tina. Or it doesn't feel good for Lost Tina. I guess it is looking good for Lost Tina, to be
Yeah,
honest, somehow.
in our
Um,
opinion.
Next one to talk about is probably the Chi and Pao, and I think there's two main ways people are playing this right now. It's like there's the turbo build, Pokestops, cross switchers, which I feel like is like the build that gets talked about more and more hyped. But when you look at results, it's always like the more straightforward, like gimmicks, I guess is the best way to put it. No gimmicks type of builds that you see having the most success. Like that was the highest placing list at an AIC. There's a couple lists at the most recent late night tournament. I believe Shintaro was one of them, not quite in top eight, but just outside of it. And both of the lists were just like Lost City builds with 4 Iridas, some Ionos, a little bit more substance to them, I guess. Um, and so yeah, no matter how much I hear about the more aggressive cross switchers and canceling clone combo type builds, Lost City, the seemingly slower Lost City type builds seem to always have the more success. 'Cause I think that like being the more turbo-ish build with Pokestop stuff, I don't actually I don't think it increases your percent chance of getting like turned to Baxcalibur by very much. Both decks are pretty good at doing that. You just get like a maybe higher chance of a more early canceling cologne play on the Manaphy, but that seems to be all you kind of get out of playing all the shenanigans.
Yeah, I just don't really get how Arceus has become the like inclusion for most people. Like, I mean, I get it. It's good. I mean, it sets up your Baxcalibur and it's good in the combo list with the cross switchers and the canceling clone, right? But I
Yeah.
just think Palkia is overall so much more
Nah.
consistent. You're not a fan of the Palkia in
I
it?
mean, Starbirth is just better, I think. I think as far as consistency goes, Starbirth is better. Palkia just allows you to play when your opponent KOs your Excalibur, I feel like, but it doesn't really offer anything besides that. Like, that's all it offers.
I mean, the deck is pretty consistent without Arceus at getting turn 2
Yeah.
Baxcalibur.
Arceus is a good attacker into the Lost Box matchups, though.
Sure,
That's,
so
like,
is
another thing.
Palkia.
No, it's weak to lightning. You just get Raikou'd. Like, that's what I'm saying. Like, it, like, survives. Like, it gives you something
You
to,
know
like,
what's even
consistently
better
live with.
though as an attacker? Luminion.
I mean, it's okay. You still have to set something up
Greninja,
afterwards, though.
like Baxcalibur is a good attacker into Lockbox. Baxcalibur is a sick attacker into Lockbox.
Yeah.
I don't know. I've played a decent bit with like a Palkia build that I like a lot. And I think I'm a big fan of Palkia in the deck, but I understand the appeal, the allure of the Arceus V Star. But in Arceus stuff will probably overall be more popular. But I'm personally a big fan of Palkia. That's what I almost played that to my League Cup the other weekend. I kind of wish I had, to be honest.
What'd you play instead? What'd you play again?
Lost Tina, or not Lost
Mm.
Tina, Arc Tina, Arc Tina.
Artina. Okay. Um, Another build, another deck that's got a couple different builds. The Lost Box, Turbo, Kyogre. Do you have an opinion on that one, Chip? More Turbo versus Kyogre, I guess.
Yeah, I think that you might actually need Kyogre right now as like a I don't know. I mean, Kyogre in theory is worse against Iono than maybe the turbo build would be,
Yeah.
but you just the draw of Kyogre is so high and like you're never out of a game when you have Kyogre, it feels like. It's kind of the same thing. And you can kind of like you can play to only ever getting Iona to 4, which is not great, but you can play to that happening where it's similar to how you would play around Roxanne against Mew, right? For a long time, where you would just take 2 prizes and then never take, another prize until you were gonna Kyogre at the end of the game, so they couldn't ever Roxanne you. So, the worst they could do is judge you, and you could always kinda still maintain and get out of that. Like, if you can do that, you just need to last for long enough to get to the point where they have 1 prize left, but you can Kyogre for the game. And, you know, um uh, Lugia is a little bit on the down, which was always kind of a tougher matchup for the Kyogre build.
That'd be the
Um,
reason to play the Kyogre, I feel like, is the Lugia matchup. Because like the more Turbo build has a worse Lugia matchup. So if you're
a slight chance in the Lugia matchup with Kyogre compared to the other build, but
I mean, I think it's like it's like an okay matchup if you have the Ogre. It's still tough. It is tough. Especially if they have all the gimmicks, like the Serena and stuff. But
yeah.
yeah, I think that's the main reason to play the Kyogre. If not, then you're kind of looking at Arceus decks, and I think Zapdos V is like a better answer to Arceus decks than the
Yeah, but you know the
Kyogre.
problem with Zapdos V is
What?
It gets bodied by Spiritomb.
Oh, yeah, but then they put Spiritomb in play, you could just get a free save. Like, I think you actually want that. You want that trade-off of, like, if they know you play Zapdos and they're going to go out of the way to put Spiritomb in play, it's such an easy prize card for Sableye to KO and then set up more damage. Like, you want that
Maybe
free
so,
prize
yeah.
card. Um, I feel like, yeah, I feel like the only reason to play Kyogre right now is the Lugia matchup. If you want
No, I could
extra
I
percentage of
think
the Lugia
if
matchup.
you're playing Turbo, yeah, I could see the Zapdos definitely being the way. But your energy, I mean, is it fine to just be one Zapdos, one fighting, and then you still
Yeah,
kind of keep the like water and lightning counts the same in psychics?
I think so. That's what I had, like, most recently, and I think that works out, it works out pretty well. Feels pretty smooth still.
Enough when you need it.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I'm
And
not a huge fan.
then
I think going fast is just really good. Like for the Guardian matchup and the Mirror match, and even like the Lost Tina matchup, just potential for turn one Greninjas and potential for like turn two Sableyes. Like just play an aggressive build. I think that's like the best way to go right now. Kyogre feels a little bit too awkward and not enough good matchups.
all the way down at number 4, Gardevoir. So I think the first thing is, are you surprised to see Gardevoir this low in the online tournaments? And is that indicative of where it should be when you're considering the world's meta? Should it be the 4th deck on the list of what you're expecting to hit?
I think it could be, to be honest, but I still think it's the best deck in the format. Still, I think it's the best overall deck in the format. But I could see it being like in the instead of being the number one most played like it was at NAIC by like a lot, it could be the third most played deck or something like that, kind of like tied with second, and maybe Lost Tina. If these online results show us anything, maybe Lost Tina is going to step up and be that the top dog at Worlds, which is kind of a surprise to be honest, which I wouldn't
I
have been
will
able to
say,
predict.
like at Worlds, I would not be surprised to see like a 10, like multiple 8 to 12% decks for the top 6, like very pretty even across the
Hmm.
board, to be honest.
Yeah, I could see it. Do you think with our next deck, do you think Mew will be one of those? Do you think Mew's going to be creeping up? I feel like Mew's so bad right now, but what do you
Yeah,
think?
I don't think Mew. I almost wonder if like a double turbo Mew could just be fine right now, and you just like high roll, don't hit Spiritombs. Not many people are playing him in the online events. Like,
Yeah.
what if someone just played that? You know, it's more consistent than the fusion build.
How
Would
good
that
is that
be good
deck?
enough right now?
That's my problem with Mew is I think even if you don't hit any Spiritombs, I don't even think the deck is still that good in the meta. That's my problem with Mew. I feel
Well,
like you're even
fusion
at
Mew
that
probably
point.
not, right? It's
I
less
think any of them.
consistent.
I think even DCE Mew. Well, I mean, yeah, maybe DTE Mew. Maybe it's a little
DTE
bit
Mew
better than I
probably
give it
does
credit.
fine against Lost Tina, if because they're not playing Drapion. Lost Tina was always a really hard matchup for Mew because they played Drapion, so they could just
Yeah,
Drapion one Mew and then start Requiem another, and you just
yeah.
lose. You can't do anything
But now
about
that yeah,
that.
now their win condition is that the Roxanne path probably. But you're like disrupting them so much in the early game. How cleanly can they set up into that at that
Yeah,
point?
you're fine against Lugia. You're probably fine against Gardevoir.
Not terrible.
Guardy does have reversal energy now, which it didn't in the Scarlet Violet base set format.
Everyone was playing Sky Sealstone back then, so that's like the
You're
trade off. I feel
probably
like.
pretty good against Baxcalibur as DT Mew, to be honest.
Fusion Muse definitely felt tough. Ran into a couple of Fusion Muse when I was playing Excalibur the other day on ladder. That felt tough. I don't know if
Yeah,
like it was because of that turn one attack potential. I don't know if Double Turbo Muse still has that same threat level. But even then, like the Path plus Judge is annoying because like getting cards off of the Shivery Chill is like getting the energy from Shivery Chill is so important for the deck to like
yeah,
ramp up to those big numbers you need to hit to KO Muse. So it probably hurts quite a bit.
yeah, for sure.
Like those B
So yeah, I
barrels.
mean, but also like I think at Worlds, people are probably going to play Spiritomb in their deck. Like I think in
Yeah, maybe.
online events, I could see Mew being good right now. Like if you're wanting to like maybe have a run in an online event, maybe give that just regular DTE Mew a try. High roll, don't hit the Spiritombs. A lot of people are not playing it right now. But I think at Worlds, we will probably see Spiritomb make its way back into decks because it's the consideration of the whole world coming together for the tournament and not just North America, right? And Mew has won like every single Asian tournament, it feels like, in the past
Yeah,
2 months. Like it's
been
ridiculous.
doing pretty
Mew has
well.
done nothing but win in Asia. Um, and that's even
Killing it.
winning against Spiritomb decks in Top Cut, right? So
Yeah.
I think it's even though I agree, I don't think Fusion Mew is great. I think Double Turbo Mew could be okay. Um,
Do you think
I
people
don't
are gonna
think
play
like
Spiritomb?
if NAIC was tomorrow, I don't think I would put Spiritomb in like a Gardevoir deck. But if I was playing in Worlds tomorrow, I think I would put Spiritomb in a Gardevoir deck.
I mean, that is fair. That definitely does seem to be a little bit more a higher success rate of Mew in the tournaments in Asia for sure, which would kind of, beg the question of whether or not it's worth it. And maybe at that point it is worth it, or maybe Mew's just like, and especially also another thing is like maybe Mew's a little bit better than people are giving it have been giving it credit for it leading up to this point. And maybe looking at some of these tournaments that are happening in Asia, it's like, all right, maybe I should put that extra time into the Mew deck. Let's see how good this thing is. And it's like, oh shoot, thing's pretty good, right? So that could also be another thing as well for sure. That kind of pulls it along. Got a couple more to look at here. I guess Lugia. How do you feel about Lugia right now, Chip?
I actually kind of like single strike Lugia right now. I've been seeing a lot of people online saying that like Lugia is just a bad deck, and it's just like not true. I don't know where this is coming from. It's not that different than it was pre Paldea evolved, and it was good in that format. Um, I think your Guardy matchup at NAIC was worse, but I
Pretty
think that
tough.
there's less reason right now for and that was the problem we had with the deck before NAIC, right? It was like that it just was never beating Gardevoir because of Roxanne plus or Iono plus Temple plus Spiritomb.
Pretty tough.
Um, but now less Gardevoirs are playing Spiritomb, and there's less of a reason to play Temple. I actually don't know 1,000% like how popular Temple is right now in Gardevoir, but I feel like people are on the verge of cutting it slash have cut it from their deck. Um, so yeah, I could see single strike Lugia being pretty solid. I think it does fine against Lost Tina. I think it does fine against Lost Box. I think it does. It's probably close against Chien Pao. I think if you just go first and take the first two prize knockout, you can prize race them, and if you
Yeah.
go second, you can try to get a cheeky KO back Excalibur play and hope that that's enough. But yeah, I don't know. What do you think about single strike Lugia right now?
Yeah, my opinion on Lugia for a while was that if Guardies didn't play Temple of Sinnoh, I think Single Strike Lugia was maybe the best deck in the format. I don't think it's quite as powerful as I was giving it credit for, and I think the Lost Tina matchup can be tough as well because they have the whatever the V Star power attack is, plus like Roxanne, they get through your gift energy that way, or they get around your gift energy that way. So little things like that. So I feel like the Lost Tina matchup is probably pretty tough. I don't know for sure to be honest. I'm not like super versed in the matchup, but the biggest thing that I felt like was holding Lugia back at NAIC was just every Guardy player played Temple of Sinnoh, and I think like Iono plus Temple of Sinnoh gave Guardy a solid advantage against Lugia. But yeah, there's less. I mean, Spiritomb is less of. That was also a thing that was annoying. Well, will there be less Spiritomb at Worlds? So I guess is the question because you're kind of hyping it up right now. So, but yeah,
I
people are
mean,
cutting Temple of
just
Sinnohs though.
because
That's
I
true.
think it could be worth playing doesn't necessarily mean that like other people will
Well, isn't
come to
that what
that
you said? You
same.
said you think people will play Spiritomb at Worlds.
Yeah, and maybe I should say like I think I would.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. You don't know if people
I don't
will.
know. I don't know. It's just tough. It's so hard to predict,
Yeah.
especially like when it comes to it's easier to predict like more meta share percentages, but when it comes to like individual tech cards, it's so hard to get
Know what people are
inside
gonna
the
play.
mind
Yeah.
of that many people because like everyone has different thought processes of what's like necessary, right?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Um.
I mean, I could absolutely see both things being true, like
What was the last thing? We got a couple of the Arceus decks. How do you feel about Arceus in general? You played Arctina at your cup. Arcturalodon is kind of. I think both Arceus decks are struggling a little bit because of the Lost Tina hype. I feel like Lost Tina is pretty good into Arceus decks.
Mhm,
Um, it matches up pretty well. Just like you can one hit KO them with Lost Tina a little bit more consistently than they have the option of one hit KO. And you even if you play Lee Arctina, Lost Tina is a little bit more aggressive at getting to the one hit KO and then chaining the one hit KOs. I
mhm.
feel like, and with the the Duraludon deck has no way to KO a Tina V Star, right? So
Yeah,
they're coming up
I
short on
think
that.
I'm not crazy about Arceus Duraludon. I do like Arctina. Like we said, I played it at a League Cup, and I went 3-3, which is not a great record, obviously. But I think I hit like, I mean, 3 of my games, so I had one of my 3 losses was, like, just a close matchup against a Gardevoir, can go either way, I think yeah, he went first, and so, like, I did what I think I like should have done to try to win, and he just ended up having everything he needed. He didn't whiff much off of like the Roxannes or Ionos, and so that is what it is. And then my other 2 losses were just absolute bricks. One of them was um, I did nothing for the first like 4 turns of the game, and then finally top decked a research and Trinity charged or Trinity Novid finally on like turn 4. And then
Nice.
the other one was with turn 1 attachment to Arceus, and then my opponent Ionoed me turn 1 into 4 energy plus like a basic plus a boss or something like that. Like it was just like 6 unplayable cards off Iono, top deck something else unplayable, one of those type of things. So but every game I played where like I got a turn 1 attachment to an Arceus and I got a turn 2 Trinity Nova, the deck felt insane. It felt like I could do everything. I could have these really high HP attackers. I had good draw with Bibarel, and I had a one-hit KO threat consistently with the Giratina. And I don't know how bad the Lost Tina matchup is, to be honest. Like it's probably just close.
Yeah.
um, it's tough if they path you because most Lost Teen or Arc Tinas don't play an out to path. So if they just path you turn 1, you can't Starbirth, which is tough for sure. But you have V-Guard energy, which can really help a lot to stop that chain of like one hit KOs every single turn, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I can see it. Yeah, and then you have like having the
And you
potential to
have
one KO
the
their Arc V star is like important, which you have the potential of.
disruption like carries you heavy in that matchup, I feel like too. Like
Yeah, up against
I was
most lost
playing
zone decks,
4
that is
Judge, 3 Iono in my deck.
yeah.
So, I mean, it's just like which I think is like normal for the deck, right? If not 4/4, like
Yeah, yeah. It's
just
either
like
4-3 or 4-4 for sure.
and
Try
I
and hit
do
them every
think
single
if
turn.
you're playing 4 of one of the 2, I think Judge is the better 4 of than the Iono.
I'm not sure about that because you do want to play. You have to play the game initially, right? You have to set
Sure.
up your Arceus turn 2 to get going. But
Yeah, but you don't
I
need
could see it.
much.
I mean, you gotta find a little. You gotta get the Beedoof, maybe some Squovette action, you know.
It's
And
true,
then I
it's
guess like
true.
the last deck we'll mention here is just the deck that won an AIC, right? Rapid Strike Box, whatever you want to call it, Inteleon or Shifu. I personally really like this deck right now. I think it's a ton of fun to play as well. It's like one of my favorite decks to play right now, just because of all the cool yoga looping, damage spread combos you have to set up throughout games. Generally has a pretty good matchup against Gardevoir and most Lost Zone decks. But then it does start to come up a little bit short against stuff like Lugia. Do you want to tech for Mew? If it's still Fusion Mew, usually your Spiritomb isn't enough to win you that matchup anyways. Um, and then the Chi-Power matchup, I'm actually not too sure about, but you could theoretically kind of trap them out of Frigibacks. That's for sure.
Yeah, I think Cyrus played against I'm gonna look up the Stats Live. I'm pretty sure Cyrus played against like 2 Chien-Pao, if I remember from when I looked at this.
Yeah, I mean, they need a lot of energy to
Cyrus
KO. Like,
played
yeah,
against 0 Chien-Pao, actually.
yeah, I have no idea how that matchup goes, to be honest.
Yeah,
But,
I'm
like,
not
yeah, you got some
totally
big
positive.
Pokemon. Like, Chien-Pao can get one hit KOs, but getting through some VMAX Pokemon can be tough sometimes.
Yeah, and also like you said, they can just keep you off Ridgebacks theoretically.
Yeah,
If
just
they just
spawn
go
trap.
first, like they can definitely do that, right?
Spawn trap the Frigibacks.
So I
Unlucky.
would say though, for Worlds, I don't know that Urshifu
Scared of the
Intelligent.
Mew?
Maybe it is like a good day 1 and day 2 play because like day 1, do we know if it's going to be 6 or 7 rounds? Probably 7, right?
Probably 7, so you have to get 5 wins.
So you have to get 5 wins. So it's like you just have to if you know you beat Lost Zone decks and you know you beat
Hardcore?
Gardevoir decks, like is that not going to be most of what you play probably
Yeah. You're
in
also
day
pretty
1?
you're favored against like Arctina and stuff as well. Like that's a pretty good matchup as well. They don't have a way to 1
Yeah.
KO anything.
And then you go day 2 and you need to go 5-1-1 to make cut. Or it might be 8 rounds, right? It's
I
probably
have
going to be
no
7
clue.
though. Yeah, you
Let's go
probably
with
need
it.
to go
7.
502 or 5-1-1 to make cut. So it's like if there's ever a tournament to like try to high roll matchups, it's probably this format of Worlds, right? Where there's like only 7
Yeah,
rounds and
I
it's
could
the
see
best
it.
players in the room. I mean, we've seen that a few times over the years. I remember Pedro Torres saying that was kind of one of his mentalities when he played Rayquaza GX right after it came out for that Worlds in 2018, and he got top 4.
Yeah.
Like so if there's ever a tournament to kind of do it, it's the World Championships. And it's that deck that if you hit those matchups, if you hit the good matchups, you're just going to make top 8,
Yeah.
and play it
Yeah.
well. But
Yeah. And I think one of the things that one of the things that have been around that deck is that the deck is like clunky. It's definitely not the most consistent deck, but it's not like that bad. And you can usually play a best 2 out of 3 as well. Like if you break up one game, you can win 2. You can win the other 2 there for sure. So you have that as well, which is like stuff decks like Guardian Lost Box sometimes struggle to actually pull that off. So it's like a plus to playing the deck. Like you're playing big VMAX Pokemon that can do a lot of damage. And as long as you know how to like maneuver the yoga loop turns well, like that's like the biggest thing. So you're not taking like as like too much time thinking about where do I double gunner, where do I Alakazam move the damage, what do I yoga loop. You got to like be quick with those things for sure.
Yeah. And I mean, those are the top 9 decks over on Trainer Hill. Azul, do
Yeah.
you have any other kind of sleeper picks that you think are worthy of maybe a little bit more time and testing going into Worlds that you think have potential?
Maybe the Palkia deck. That's probably it though, which is the 10th deck there. The Palkia deck is like actually seems okay. I saw a list recently with that had like an Articuno in it with the paralysis. That's like a cool tech that I think could be reasonable to play in there. The
I'm
deck
gonna
got a
show a
lot better.
picture of the
Like
deck so people know.
yeah, it was kind of a deck like last format a little bit. I think Tord kind of popularized it, but I think Chi and Pow adds a lot to the deck because that's what the deck struggled with was finding energy consistently. So you
Yeah.
got that now with the Chi and Pow.
And you can close out a game as like a big one hit KO option theoretically.
Yeah,
But it's
or even in like
mostly
the
it
mid
really is
game.
mostly just to get energy cards. Like,
Or yeah, just to get energy cards, like you maybe attack with Chien-Pao once in a set, unless you like open it and KO like a small HP Pokemon. You'll use it
yeah.
then and then maybe later. But it is a Palkia deck. It is not a Chien. Everyone's like, why would you play this Chien-Pao deck without Baxcalibur? It's like, well, I hate to break it to you, it's not a Chien-Pao deck. It's a Baxcalibur deck that uses Chien-Pao to find energy. Where's your Baxcalibur? Isn't it better with Baxcalibur? Nope, different deck.
And one that I'm gonna keep coming back to that I think has
Nope.
potential right now. Do you already know what I'm gonna say?
No.
Well, why are you saying nope?
There's no way it's worth it.
Muridon, baby.
Oh my god, yeah, there's no way it's worth it. Although if
Listen,
we
I
do,
think
if there's
you're
less no, the Guardy still exists. Never mind. Go ahead.
I think that your Arceus matchups are pretty solid across the board. Lugia matchups solid. Fusion Mew is probably a little tougher. Gardevoir is probably beatable with like disruption. Lost Box is probably slightly unfavored, right? But I think like the biggest draw for the potential of Miraidon is just how popular Arceus decks have become. And I wouldn't be
Even
surprised,
Lost Tina
like
seems like it could be
on
okay.
the graph or whatever we show for the world's stream, there's gonna be 6 different decks up there for the day 1 or day 2 meta shares. I wouldn't be surprised if you added up the numbers of like Arctina and Arc Duraludon or Arc Umbreon, whatever it is. If you add up those numbers, like Arceus is overall just the most popular deck in day 1 and day 2, to be
Yeah.
honest.
Maybe not day 2. I could see it in day 1 though, to be honest. But yeah, you're hyping up the Miraidon. You think Sage and Park is gonna actually? What game is Sage and playing at Worlds? Is it the TCG?
Probably TCG.
I think so, right?
Probably.
They he played in Unite last year.
He did, yeah. I don't know if
Yeah.
he qualified for anything else this year, if it's just
Oh,
TCG. He probably did. He probably could have. Honestly, they should
yeah.
probably just give him like a perennial invite to everything, to be honest.
And then he just gets to pick. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, he'll make
He's
it into
feeling
something
go
every
this
single
year.
year. He's been dude, I hit him like 3 times on ladder the recently, like over the last week playing the Miraidon deck. He just is grinding the Miraidon deck on
Does he
ladder.
still have the 1-0 flying Pikachu line in there?
There is I saw it at least one of the times, yeah.
Yeah.
Hit him a couple times. Maybe he
No
switched up lists a
VMAX,
little bit.
just the flying Pikachu V.
Yeah. Yeah, I've hit Sage a couple times
It's funny.
on the ladder with the stupid Miraidon deck. So I don't know. He's probably playing TC. He's probably playing Miraidon to be honest. If he sits down across from Sagen, probably gonna be the Miraidon deck to be honest. Um Well, you know what? The bravery charms are really annoying. I will say that. He played like 2 of them, I think, or something. Those
Mm,
are annoying. The bravery charms are annoying. Miraidon having that extra plus 50 does matter. It definitely matters.
I could definitely see it. Could definitely see it. All right. Well, Azul, I think that is going to do it for this week's episode. Like we said, next week, we're going to be breaking down kind of our predictions for Worlds. So if you're competing or going to be watching, you definitely are going to want to hear our thoughts on that. Next week, Azul will already be in Japan when we record next week, most
Yep.
likely.
Mhm.
Most likely. We'll see. We'll figure it out. But going to be a funky couple of weeks with all the travel and stuff we have coming up. So if we're delayed on some episodes in the next few weeks, bear with us, but we'll try to make it work. But yeah, thanks a bunch to everyone, as always, for the support, for checking out the podcast. If you enjoyed, please be sure to leave us a like, a review, a rating, a comment, whatever it is. All those little things help us out so, so much. And if you want to stay up to date with us, you can find us, I guess, on x.com myself at Chip Ritchie. Azul is at Azul underscore GG. And you can follow the podcast as well at uncommon underscore energy.
Yeah, appreciate the support as always. If you want to interact with us more besides that, you can do it over on the Patreon if you're interested. We do answer like all the questions and stuff over there. And that's what we're gonna be jumping into next. Good luck to anyone who's playing cups and challenges this week. And we'll see y'all next Tuesday. Yeah, I will be in Japan at that time at 7 a.m. Eastern. Hopefully, we'll be able to stay on our normal schedule next week. We'll see. It might be a day off, but we're hoping to stay on the normal schedule next week. So yeah, see y'all next week, Tuesday, 7 a.m. Eastern.